this meeting come to order. Welcome to the September 15th, 2025 meeting of the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee. The meeting is being held via Teams and is being recorded. The video archive will be available on the Reston Planning and Zoning website. As we begin, please be reminded that all participants are expected to engage with civility and respect, both in the online chat and during public comments, so that we can foster a constructive and inclusive discussion. If citizens attending the meeting wish to make a comment or ask a question following the presentation, they may raise their hand in the Teams chat, and I'll call on them. And Mark, if you could just help me monitor that as we go, I'd appreciate it. And then please, citizens, identify yourselves and your address before making the comments or asking a question. And if you need any special communication requirements, these could be accommodated. So we have two cases on the agenda this evening. Number one is the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. And number two is Commerce Metro Center. I just want to make a note on the second application, Commerce Metro Center. I will be recusing myself from all communication and voting. We were planning to talk about the SSPA review process, but since we have a special meeting next week, Supervisor Alcorn is going to join that meeting and give a quick summary in advance of the role in place discussion. And at the end of this meeting, we will take care of our administrative tasks that we've been discussing as a team. So without further ado, application number one, redevelopment of the AAFMAA site. I believe Andrew Painter is going to present to us.
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Happy September. I'm joined by a group of people this evening. Mika, I don't know if you want to share your screen while I sort of talk through things. I don't know if you want to run the slide deck.
Yes, I would love to, although it is saying only meeting organizers and presenters can share. Is that access I can get?
Share your screen. Could you press the raise hand button? Is that possible? I could see you.
Here I am. Right there.
Sorry, we're working through some new logistics here, so sorry for any delays.
Yeah.
Okay, you should be good to go.
Oh, yeah, I think I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, can you all see my screen here?
Yes, thank you very much, Mika.
Perfect. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, this is a redevelopment of the AFMA site, which is the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. This is an application that we just filed. We received the first round of comments from county staff just a few days ago, and so we're dissecting those comments. We're synthesizing them, trying to figure out exactly the right way to respond. And so we're at the outset of what is, of course, a very lengthy process. And I had suggested, and EYA agreed, that it was good to reach out and have sort of an earlier preview discussion, about the application. And then we would be back in front of P&Z later in the application process, and certainly before the Planning Commission for a recommendation vote. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of start off, talk about some of the existing conditions, the comprehensive plan recommendations and the prior approvals that encumber the property. Then I'm going to turn it over to Evan Goldman, who is the Executive Vice President with EYA, because the selection of EYA as AFMA's development partner was not by happenstance. They really went out to EYA. They didn't just do sort of an RFP or anything like that. And there's some reasons why. And then Evan will then turn it over to Mika Gelfond-Gross, who is sharing her screen, and she is the senior development partner for EYA. And she'll talk about the process that EYA used in deciphering how they were going to approach the design of the site and the preservation of the unique features on the site as well. If we can go to the next slide. This property is owned by the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association, and that's a mouthful, but they are a 140-year-old, 145-year-old 501c23 nonprofit organization that provides survivor and financial services to members of the U.S. Armed Forces community. They purchased the site in 2009. As their headquarters. They renovated the house and the gazebo that's down by the W&OD trail by the pond. They rebuilt the cinder block and brick wall, and they have maintained the trees that are on the property as well as the sort of the land. But that is who they are. And Charlie Betancourt, who is the CEO of the organization, was not able to be here tonight, but some of you all may recall him from the circa 2019 approval process when we received approval for a brand new headquarters office building. We can go to the next slide. A lot of thought has been put into what we think a lot of thought has been put into the design that we submitted to the county. And in fact, I would say even with our pre-application filing that we did before we actually tendered the whole big kit and caboodle, Zach Fountain, who's one of our senior land use planners who's online tonight too, and we both said that we'd never seen an applicant go to this level of detail and wanting to understand the design of the site. And as part of that, we held a couple of meetings. We met with Supervisor Alcorn and Commissioner Carter. We went ahead and met with the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board early on. I will say that this is not a listed historic district in Fairfax County, but nevertheless, during the 2019 approval, which is again the last one that was done, and we'll talk about that. We did go through the ARB approval, review process. They don't have any plenary discretion or any review authority, but it was important to go to them, seek the benefit of their thoughts, and we started off with them. In fact, I think that was the first meeting that we attended. We've met with the Stratford condominium, which surrounds this property to the north and to the west. When we went through the 2019 approval process for the office buildings, they were very concerned and raised issues concerning tree preservation, noise, lighting, traffic, cut-through traffic, parking, a series of issues. And I will say what started off being sort of concerns and things like that really evolved into a very positive working relationship through that process. And so we've met with them a couple of times and solicited their feedback. It's been a very good working relationship so far, and we're going to continue that. We've met with the fire marshal, and we've met, of course, with county staff. We're meeting with you this evening. We'll be meeting with Nova Parks. They surround us to the south later this month, and then we'll be meeting again, hopefully with the condominium in October. So we can go to the next slide. So just to talk about the existing conditions, this is an extremely unique site. It is in the Reston Town Center TSA area, but it does not read as a TSA site. And frankly, I don't think it should. So if you apply the standard streetscapes and the standard types of things, if you just engineer them onto the site, I think it would devastate the site. The site itself is approximately 5.19 acres. And it is centrally located. You got Sunset Hills Road and the W&OD Trail to the south, but the W&OD Trail does provide direct connectivity to the town center under Reston Parkway, which is safe. And then, of course, you can see the Metro Rail station down at the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You have Old Reston Avenue, which was designated as a Virginia Scenic Byway due to its proximity with historic resources. The original town of Wheelie was here, and there are a couple of extant buildings. You've got the distillery building across the street. You've got the switching station down by the W&OD Trail, and you, of course, have the gazebo and the A. Smith Bowman House. In my estimation, and I think in EY's estimation too, the white brick wall, which is not itself historic in its entirety, but that white brick and concrete sort of cinder block painted wall, in my personal humble opinion, I think provides a strong visual connection between the manor house and the distillery. And it's this one stretch of property that gives Old Reston Avenue its scenic byway, like, what people think of, when they think of a scenic byway. The historic features on the site, and we'll see some pictures of this. As I mentioned, this is not located in the Fairfax County Historic Overlay District. It's not listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but it does feature the circa 1899 A. Smith Bowman Manor House. A. Smith Bowman, if you all recall, moved to this site from Cincinnati back in 1927, and he bought this house along with the Sunset Hills Farm. This property is not subject to the Reston Deed of Declaration. So it's not subject to the Reston Association or the Town Center Association. You have a gazebo and a stormwater pond that are down at the sort of the bottom of the hill that contribute to the scenic character of the site. There has been an extension that's been put on that you can see here in the lower left-hand corner, sort of this diagonal piece coming out. That's a kitchen and a garage that's also not really historic. And then you can also see the circa 1986 buildings in the upper left-hand corner that really are falling apart at this point in time. They're two office buildings, and that's just the sort of the status of it. We can go to the next slide. So just to walk through sort of what the comprehensive plan calls for. Generally speaking, it supports office or residential use at a 0.64 FAR. It supports, again, both office and or residential uses. It says that the A. Smith Bowman House and the surrounding historic features should be preserved, and any new buildings should be sensitively sited in relation to the manor house, and that the pond and the gazebo should also be preserved to maintain the property's aesthetic character. There are a couple of prior approvals. The one that's in the blue box there from 07, some of you all might remember George Kafori. He obtained approval for a condominium project called Boxwoods or Linden Springs that was never built. And then in 2019, AFMA came through, and we can go to the next slide, and sought the redevelopment of the site into two modern office buildings, about 145,000 square feet. The idea was to have these buildings serve as the headquarters for AFMA on a going forward basis. The building itself was about 50 feet in height. We did retain the manor house, the pond, and the gazebo, and a portion of the white brick wall along Old Reston Avenue, and then we rebuilt portions of it in part. We created a small formal garden between the manor house and the new building. We had a commitment to public art. We decided to, or figured out a way to create a 5-foot sidewalk along Old Reston Avenue. The one thing that, or one of the things that we didn't do, because AFMA was concerned about security at the time, they did not want to have any publicly accessible open space on the property. And as a result, what we worked out was a $20,000 commitment to the WNOD trail to Nova Parks to construct some benches, landscaping, restoration of the historic marker, and the fitness stations. Clearly, now that we're pivoting to something else, it's that publicly accessible open space is certainly on the table. And so we can go to the next slide. So this is what the ARB feedback was back in 2019. They supported maintaining a buffer between the Bowman House and the office buildings. They liked the modern architecture. That was a concern by staff, but there were enough people that thought that the modern architecture, really kind of like the John Hancock building makes the Boston State House kind of stand out, that it would make the A. Smith Bowman House sort of pop. So the ARB actually liked it. They did recommend retaining the white masonry wall, and then anything that we could do to preserve scenic view sheds. We can go to the next slide. And before I turn it over to Mika, I will just say what has happened since 2019. I think that's not a surprise, but the office needs have substantially decreased. It makes the office building totally not viable. We're now 5 years later, 6 years later, and those existing 1986 office buildings have certainly reached the end of their useful life. So AFMA did some introspective. They talked to their board of directors, and they began looking for a partner that could provide a desired use and do so in a way that they felt would honor the historic context of the site and do something right for the property. If any of you all have been in the AFMA building, it has been restored. It's elegant. It's beautiful. They do really believe in the benefits of this site. And they eventually selected EYA. They reached out to EYA due to some of the projects that EYA had worked on the Maryland side of the river. And then they started examining the portfolio of projects that EYA had of creating meaningful projects in historically sensitive areas or that featured historic assets, because not all residential builders are capable in that, they don't have any experience or things like that. So it's been a long negotiation between AFMA because they do want to do what's right by the community. And they are encouraged by EYA's willingness to sort of come to the table with architecture that complements rather than detracts from the existing. It's not just something they just pulled kind of off of the shelf. One of the things that I will say before, again, I sort of turn it over to Mika, is the county staff recommended approval of that office building project. One of the concerns that they had, though, was site views from the WNOD to the manor house, providing a visual connection between the manor house and the gazebo. And then maintaining kind of that bucolic feel around the property about the open spaces that weren't going to be having a building or a parking area on them. I think that what we have to present tonight sort of addresses some of those issues. And so I'm going to pause here. I'm going to turn it over to Evan, who's going to talk about their discussions with AFMA, but also how they have kind of approached all these sorts of sites and what experience they boast from a historic perspective. So Evan, why don't I turn it over to you?
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Evan Goldman from EYA, Executive Vice President for Acquisitions and Development. Really happy to be with all of you. I'll give you I think a lot of you know who EYA is because we've been involved in other projects like Reston Station within Reston. But just a little background. Our tagline is life within walking distance. And we think we create really high quality residential communities and neighborhoods throughout the region. We've been doing that for over 30 years. And when we saw, you can go to the next slide, when we saw this site in particular, it fit within this portfolio of different types of projects that we do. And so we have some larger scale neighborhoods or projects. We have some more urban projects like Reston Station was, but we have plenty of projects in our portfolio that are more historically contextually sensitive and fit within the context of their surroundings. And so when AFMA approached us, this fell into a category of projects that, as you can see here on the screen, we have a lot of particular expertise in. These four examples, Chelsea Heights is probably the most almost exact comparison. It's an old historic house in Silver Spring where we purchased the property, preserved the historic house, turned it back into a single family house, and sold that as a single family home, which is what our hope is to do here. And then developed contextually sensitive townhomes and open spaces around it. On the upper right, one of my favorite projects that I've ever worked on within EYA is the Josephite Seminary neighborhood in Northeast Washington, D.C., where we preserved the existing seminary as a historic national resource, preserved acres of land, 2 acres of land around the seminary building, which you're seeing in the background, placed public access easements onto those open spaces. They'll be usable by the community, and then built townhomes on the backside of the seminary that once again were contextually sensitive, similar architectural style and color and quality, and similar to the projects below. I can go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay, so let's go on one more slide. There we go. So I just wanted to share, it's rare when we do presentations that we jump right to the end and show a perspective of what we hope to achieve on the site. But when we started working on this project about a year ago, the architecture, the design, the setup just kind of just flowed onto the paper almost immediately. And we've shared these images with various community members that live right around the property, with the ARB, as well as with the supervisor and planning staff member, or planning board member. Just to express, because an image expresses the best of what it might look like, our goal here is to really celebrate the house, open up the view shed to the house much better, create open space that connects to the house from the trail, and then come up with, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, it feels lower than the house and makes the house feel like it should be as a celebrated, beautiful home sitting on the hilltop. I will show you the next slide. This is, by the way, this is a view from the south side, from the trail. And then this is a view from Old Reston Avenue, and you can see the house, fully in view. The new homes, similar color, some similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the homes that has similar feeling, similar color, similar detailing, but is clearly, as you can see here, a style of architecture for the ho the white wall preserved along Reston Avenue, that open space there, which we would make a public open space for the community to use in front of the house, and try to really create something that feels like it had been planned as this community had once been thought to be. So when this property was initially developed and the house was built, there was an idea of building a village of homes around it. And that's somewhat what we're looking to achieve here. I'm going to hand over to Miko, who's going to walk through some of the details and the thought and some of the challenges with this specific site, given the grade. And then we'll all be ready to answer questions once she's done. Go for it, Mika.
Hey, thanks, Evan. So sort of showing the process of how we landed on what we just shared on the screen, there are a number of constraints and considerations for this site that we needed to navigate. And I'm going to try and consolidate a year's worth of engineering into just a few slides. So you'll have to bear with me here. But really, one is the existing structures, obviously the critical importance of celebrating the Bowman House and the gazebo and that white wall. There are some beautiful old trees on the site. We want to keep them as much as we can, wherever it's possible. There are curb cuts on the site, and I'll show these to you on a plan in just a moment. But we want to maintain the existing entrance onto the site, and there was one other that was approved in 2019. Just to maintain as much of a status quo as possible. And then the grading. It is compounded in its complexity by holding all of the above items in place. And I'll show that to you in just a minute. And of course, we need to be sensitive from a grading perspective of making sure that there is sufficient and even above and beyond of ADA accessible pathways on the site. We also wanted to, as Andrew walked through, honor the 2019 proffer commitments. And as Evan and Andrew both spoke to, coordinating with our neighbors, the Stratford condominium, and making sure that we are hearing their concerns and implementing them wherever we can in our plan. So this is a plan of an existing conditions on the site. The Bowman House is behind here. It's labeled. These are the offices, the existing office. And the goal of this plan is to show you that with all the constraints that I just walked through, this is where they manifest themselves on the site. So these are things that we cannot move. One thing, and if you're familiar with the topo map, you'll see that there is a fairly steep grade as you are coming up the site from the gazebo and the pond, and around the corner, near where the trees are along the Stratford property line, that make all of this harder. And I'm going to show you in a few slides sort of what that looks like and why these areas are complex things that we can't move. And then, of course, the curb cuts that I mentioned, this is the existing one on your far right side of the screen, and then on the bottom left, the approved 2019 curb cut. Those are all things we're trying to maintain and work within. So here's a view on the westward side. Here's your Bowman House, and then you can see this two-tiered office building with this substantial plaza. What does that actually look like from a grade perspective? This plaza is in two steps. Each step is has an 11-foot tall staircase, right? So that's really significant already. Where this photo is taken, the grade is at 390. The Bowman House is at 424. So that's a 30 feet difference in grade that we need to come up with. On the other side, same Bowman House on the left, of course, and you see the office in the plaza. It looks fairly flat from this image, but it's actually, a 15 to 20 foot difference in grade when you go from the left side of the house, where the Bowman House and the carriage is at 430, down to where the edge of this photo is taken, sort of at the corner of the office at around 415, 414, and then right at the edge of the office at 420. So we're dealing with a fairly substantial amount of grade here, spread over a good amount of space, but there are some areas on the site that are really difficult to navigate. And given the plan anchors that we looked at in the prior slide, that makes it even less flexible that we need to deal with. So almost, I would say, basically all of our design decisions had to incorporate some amount of grading and trade-off associated with grade, and that also means tree preservation, because you can't move the ground that the trees are on, and all of that has gone into really every decision that we made on this plan. So here is the proposed plan. I'll show you a couple of things we're calling out here. At the top, in between what we're calling building E and F, there is a proposed connection to what is an existing path on the Stratford property that ultimately feeds the WNOD trail, which is on the far left of the site. So that will be ultimately a path to the WNOD. We have a historic inspired garden that is just planned north of the Bowman House in the center here. That garden, actually, we have aerial photography that goes back to the 1930s that shows that there was a garden more or less in this location, proximate to the home, and we wanted to bring back that history. The white wall is being preserved. It will be moved in certain locations, primarily as it relates to half of it is a brick wall that is really lovely and nice to look at, and then the other half is a cinder block wall that is less nice to look at. We're going to be removing the cinder block, replacing it with a brick look wall, and it's going to be really lovely. And we'll have a couple of breaks in the wall too for the public to access the site because these are publicly accessible spaces. We have that view from the Manor House of Old Reston Ave, the importance of that scenic byway. We have the lawn with the heritage trees that we're trying to preserve, and we'll do the best we can there, that will be open and accessible to the public. A sidewalk along Old Reston Ave as well that we'll be building along the length of the site, and also a little bit up north, which is screened to your right, to tie into the Stratford entrance, as well as south, which is screened left, to the WNOD trail itself. And then we have our historic gazebo and pond here. So here's just a little bit of a frame of reference. Sometimes the grade is something, that is a challenge for us to navigate, and sometimes we have really great solutions that it gives us. So this is one of those examples of right at the back along the property line with Stratford. There is a consistently changing grade back there, but we've been able to really use it to our advantage, and be able to have these new townhomes have a lower level that in some cases is partially buried, which means that the perceived height relative to our neighbors of the condo is not quite as great. And so that is also a similar strategy that we're using for the Bowman House itself. There will have buried fronts in some of our townhomes in order to feel like the Bowman House itself is bigger and grander, and the townhomes will not detract from it. And that was a strategic design decision that we made that also happened to work with the grading. This is, I'll go quickly through this. It's just connectivity through the site. You can get around the site. There are multiple ADA accessible routes. The red here is how the public would access some of the publicly accessible locations within the site. The pond and the gazebo, as well as some of the new WNOD trail connections that we're proposing, and that new sidewalk along Old Reston Ave. And now that you're a little bit more oriented with the site, these are those rendered views again that Evan started us off with. The first one down by the pond and the gazebo, that number one, looking up towards the home at the top of that hill, again, that 30-foot difference in grade. And then number two is that scenic byway angle. So this is the number one. Looking up at the homes, you see those buried fronts that we were talking about. And then here's number two again, showing the view from Old Reston Ave and the ghost of the trees that we are doing our best to maintain and preserve in that new sidewalk. So from project statistics, here, if you look at what was approved in 2019 relative to what were proposed, we are at or improving the conditions. So it's a consistent building height once all is said and done with what was previously approved. There was no affordable housing on site previously. It was not a residential use. And now we're going to have 7 affordable dwelling units. The traffic count, because this what used to be as proposed in 2019 an office, and current use as an office, we're dramatically reducing it, close to 70%. And then there's the urban park requirement, which Andrew talked about. There was no publicly accessible space that was on site due to security concerns with AFMA. Now we're going to have at least 11,000, give or take, square feet, and we are still committed to that $20,000 improvements to the WNOD trail on top of that AFMA had committed to back in 2019. So just to wrap us up here, our project benefits, we really think about it in 4 major categories: historic preservation, parks and open space, mobility and accessibility, and our environmental stewardship, which we haven't touched much on, but I'd love to tell you about briefly. As you know, with the historic preservation, maintaining the house, the gazebo, the walls, even these heritage trees are of critical importance and a goal that we set out with when we started this design process. We're reintroducing the historic garden, which is not there today. And as you've seen, the architecture really pays homage to the Bowman House, and so do the view corridors and how we've laid out the site. With the parks and open space, we're exceeding the requirement. They will be easily publicly accessible and ADA accessible. And we are still maintaining that $20,000 improvement to the WNOD, which is above and beyond what is required. Mobility and accessibility, a significant traffic reduction. We have that sidewalk along Old Reston Ave and a share row for a shared bike lane on Old Reston Ave as well. We have park spaces that are ADA accessible. And then the design of the townhomes actually features an option for purchase of an elevator so that individuals who are living here can age in place. And then finally, on environmental stewardship, this will be an all-electric development. There will be no gas in the new townhomes. We will modernize the stormwater management system. We're designing to an earthcraft standard, and then there will also be options for townhome owners to have EV chargers in their homes and also solar panels. So with that, thank you for spending time and listening, and we would love to answer any questions that you may have.
And Mika, I might just say too, we did receive some preliminary feedback from staff. Some of the key items that were raised by staff, just so that everybody has context. One is just the future of the Bowman House, trying to identify what that future use is. One is Old Reston Avenue. What does the sidewalk, how can we get a sidewalk along there, and the connection to the WNOD Trail? How does it also align with American Dreamway across the way? A third issue, which is going to take, I think, a bit of work from our side, is the internal connectivity and streetscape. The county is asking for a wider streetscape than what we would like to do, and so that's we're gonna have to work with that. Access and programming of those park spaces. What does the internal trail look like? How welcoming is it? How welcoming is it to, and intuitive is it for people to access the trails and cut through the property if they want to get to the trail that goes along the Stratford property line, for example? What does the urban, the lawn look like along Old Reston Avenue? Is the Rose Garden going to feel open and welcoming? Is it possible to have a publicly accessible park space between the gazebo and the manor house, and that type of thing? And then there were a series of other technical comments as well that we received. So that's kind of where the application stands at this preliminary stage. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you. And as Mika said, we're here to answer any questions and take whatever constructive criticism, feedback that we can get and help, inform the future of the project.
Thank you for your presentation. That was great. So we'll start by going through planning and zoning committee members, and then if there's anyone in the public that would like to speak or ask questions, you can raise your hands after the P&Z goes. So it looks like we have Lynn, number one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Andrew, thank you, and Mika and Mr. Goldman. Thank you all so much for the presentation. I had 3 comments. Mika, on your, I think it was slide number 33, you mentioned that you all are providing 7 affordable units. I just want to make sure, are you referring to workforce housing or affordable?
Affordable.
Okay, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yes.
My second comment is I am not a huge fan of the new architectural style that features the rear loading alleyways. I noticed in some of the renderings that you all actually had balconies that are overlooking the alleyway. I just find that design element is very unattractive. And I don't know, I can't wait for that to become unpopular. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, Andrew, you had mentioned that the county wanted you all to provide wider streetscapes, and I'm afraid I would be on the side of the county on that one.
Yeah,
Those
thanks.
are my 3 comments.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Andrew, I could take this a little bit. Yeah, it depends on where we are. So on Old Reston Avenue, give the location of the historic wall or the portion of the wall that's historic, given the grade on Old Reston, and obviously the need to have a sidewalk on Old Reston that's really missing. We think we can get pretty close to a standard along Old Reston. But a lot of it will depend as we get into civil engineering on exactly what the grading is. And that's something we're working with staff. We'll obviously have to work with VDOT on. But we agree, in a place that's high traffic like that, it should be as big as possible and ideally a 6-foot sidewalk. Within the development, EY, this will probably be our almost 50th project that we've built or neighborhood we've built in our, throughout our history. And we rarely, if ever, go above a 5-foot sidewalk. There's just not enough foot traffic in our neighborhoods to warrant a 6-foot sidewalk. And so, that's something we'll continue to work with staff on within the development. And then we already had a meeting with staff last week to talk through some of these issues and are making some changes based upon the feedback.
Evan, if I could add one thing, the grading is another consideration, certainly for the Old Reston sidewalk, Lynn, but also interior to the site. What we didn't go into a lot of detail here is that in order to preserve the trees that we're trying to preserve, we need to make sure that we're not imposing on the critical root zone, which is typically larger than the actual canopy of the tree, as I'm sure you're aware. And so some of the sidewalk decisions that we made, we've actually curved the sidewalk around critical root zones and are trying to do so. So it seems like there's a lot of space on the site, but deceptively there's not because of all of these reasons. And this is precisely the conversation we're trying to have with staff of, this was our first cut at prioritization between all these different things. And we're looking, for their guidance and all of your feedback here to make sure that we're prioritizing the right things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Lynn.
Lynn. Tammy, I noticed you did have your hand up, but it's no longer up. Did you mean to?
No, I do have questions.
Okay, you were next up, so
Yes,
I'll let you take
Thank
the
you.
stand.
Question, could you please put up the aerial view of the whole plan? I have some questions. It'll be easier if we have that up.
Sure. Do you mean this one
Yes,
here, Tammy?
perfect.
This is it? Great.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay. First of all, I nearly fell off my chair when I read 7 ADUs and WDU was crossed out and it really was ADUs. Then I looked around for 7 where, and I see 7 really, really, really narrow units. I assume those are the ADUs?
That's correct.
Okay, how wide are they?
So those
Yeah,
are 14 foot. Yeah, those are our standard affordable units that we do throughout the region. They're 3-bedroom homes that'll sell for about $275,000. They're 14 foot wide by 38 foot deep. And all the bedrooms meet the county minimum standard sizes. They have a really nice common living space. They'll have 2 parking spaces each house. So they live, like a standard 3-bedroom house.
Okay. So, I'm a designer, interior designer, designing for a 14-foot total width inclusive is really tough. So there's, you have to put a stairwell in there to go up. I assume that runs along the side, not front to back.
Yeah. We're
Okay.
happy to tour you. We have model units of our affordable units all throughout the county and projects that we've been delivering and have delivered. We've probably built 200 of these in our experience over the last 25 years. We actually have our own in-house interior design department as well as our own in-house architecture department. So, yeah, it's something we have a lot of experience with. And if you think about a typical multifamily apartment building, which is where a lot of affordable units end up being, those are typically on 12-foot or 11-foot modules where the living room is typically 11 foot 6 wide. So having that 14-foot wide dimension in the living space works really nicely. And then the stair is set behind that. But we're happy to meet with you and give you a tour of some of the units.
Yeah,
They work really nicely.
that's adding the stairwell in, which has the 3-foot minimum plus the wall, you're shrinking that 14 down. Okay, so I get what you're saying, Evan. Nice marketing on that. the other another question I had was, in your literature, you suggest that the manor house could be a single family residence or a clubhouse. And I assumed for the 57 planned townhouses. Have you made a decision on that?
Yeah, so not yet. Almost certainly it'll be a single family home. And we've been meeting with brokers about the market for the home. We wanted to preserve optionality just in case there was another idea that came up to us. And it's unlikely that a community this small would support a clubhouse or amenity feature of this size and scale. It'll probably be too expensive from an HOA perspective. We are pricing that out though as a backup option.
Okay, given that, if I were looking to buy this manor house as a single family, the last thing on the planet I would want is a public sidewalk coming up to my house and running right beside it. So that's a huge concern that I have. I understand connectivity through the site and getting to the sidewalk that goes into the Stratford, but to run it by this kind of a majestic antique house, which is going to be a high dollar thing, I don't get that at all. That makes no sense.
Understood. Yeah. So we have our own in-house, sales company. We have 25 sales agents that work at EYA. We probably sell more homes than anyone in the region of this type. So we've run those types of comments by them already and talked through the design with them and made sure that we've designed the house to have enough private space as far as rear yard and side yard that it feels comfortable and private and yet is part of the community itself. But we understand this house will not appeal to some single family buyers, but it only takes one buyer, luckily.
Unbelievable. Thank you very much for preserving the trees that you can and adding extra trees. Could not be more happy with that. Another question I had and I'm concerned with, and it sort of tees into what Lynn was talking about, having balconies over a rear load. Where you want a variance to get rid of the 200 square foot required backyard for townhouses. Where do people store their crap, their bikes, their trash, and everything else?
Yeah, so once again,
is the entire lower level all garage and storage?
Great question. So once again, we're happy to tour. Anyone on this call is interested. We can meet at one of our projects and tour our houses. We have sales centers literally right in the county, as well as in Montgomery County that people can look at, and that would help people understand how it works. But essentially, on the ground floor of the house, you have 2 parking spaces. You have an area within the garage that is for the trash and recycling bins, and then of course those are put out behind the house on trash pickup day. The houses that are 20 feet wide, which is most of these houses are 20 and 24 foot wide, so they're relatively big, have a kind of an entry as well as a den, or some people use it as an office or a workout room on the ground level. Some people use it as a storage space, so depending on the family and how they want to use it, there's a closet down there as well. So that's kind of your entry experience in the house at the lowest level. And then you go upstairs to the second floor where the living level is, and it's one big open space with kitchen, dining room, family room. And that's where people really spend most of their time within the house. So the downstairs becomes kind of that common space for arrival. But yeah, this is, the 200, the typical backyard gets replaced by a rooftop deck that all the units have on the upper level, which is one of the favorite amenities of all of our buyers. And in this case, the vast majority of these houses will have elevator options, which is most of our empty nesters are purchasing that option. And that allows people, even though it's on the 4th floor, obviously in the top floor, that allows people to grab their food at the 2nd floor in the kitchen, get in the elevator, go up to the 4th floor and spend time on the outside rooftop deck and the loft space on that level. But as I said, we're happy to tour people around our homes. You know, they're very much in demand, so we know that the design has been working successfully.
I would,
Evan, am I going to put my bike in the elevator and take it up to my rooftop deck so that it doesn't get stolen? Or where am I
No,
putting my bike?
most people store that within the garage. They, you know, there's some people mount it to the wall within the garage. Some people put it at the back end of the garage, and so yeah, there's room for that as well.
So the garage is deep enough to have bike storage in front of your car?
Yep.
Assuming you get the bike in before you get the car in on a 20-foot space and two cars.
Yeah,
Hopefully
once
you
again,
have
we're happy to tour
mini
you through the
cars.
houses. This
Yeah.
product type isn't something new. We've been doing it for 30 years.
No, well, yeah.
Tammy, I also might say too, we have the against Stratford, we have the row of front load
Right.
townhouses,
Right.
and I will just say that those have proven, and maybe already is, but like those are proven to not be as popular with some people in the county that want everything to be rear load and they never see a car anywhere. But just adjacent to Stratford, we thought that was the most appropriate thing. So just wanted to throw that out there too, for what it's worth.
Well, the next issue I have is where is your visitor parking? You have front loaders along the west wall to Stratford that have a prayer of 2 cars in the garage and maybe 2 cars outside for guests or service people. But I don't see any parking for service people or guest parking. So did I miss that, or that's why I wanted this view up?
Yep.
Yeah,
there's
so
Go
go
for it, Nika.
ahead. Well, we didn't pay much attention in when we reviewed the site plan, Tammy, for that. But I don't know if you can see my mouse, but on the south side of the private drive, sort of just above this building D, above where the rose garden is, and building H, and below the front loads. There are a number of parking spaces. Off the top of my head, I can't quite recall, but I know that we're meeting the requirement. And
Parallel parking on the private road? Is that what you're
Yep.
talking about?
yep, that's correct.
That's right.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. Yeah, you're not going to have many on the west side of that road, but on the east side, you might be able to smash them. Lastly, I've lived here forever, and Old Reston Avenue has really deep rain gutters on the west side of it. And when I saw this sidewalk outside the wall, I was like, whoa, how are they handling that deep? You have to be extremely careful on Old Reston not to go fast because of the curves, not huge curves, but you have to pay attention. And otherwise that deep rain gutter is there. And I'm saying it's at least a foot deep, if not 18 inches to the last time I went by there. So am I misremembering that? Or how in the hell are you getting a 6-foot sidewalk exterior of the wall? Hopefully it's not on the pavement. There's not room on the pavement to widen that road. I don't understand how that's
So there's
happening.
there's 11 foot, approximately 11'6" between the Old Reston curb today and the wall for most of the length of the property. And so that allows us to create a tree pit zone and then the sidewalk in some areas, because we'll be fixing the grade as we get down to the bottom part of our property. We'll actually bring the wall height down. We'll take the part of the wall that's not historic, we'll take down and then put a new white wall in that location at a lower grade. That'll allow the sidewalk to fit in that location. But yeah, we have our, as part of our submission, our civil engineering drawings go into some detail on how that works. And there is enough space there.
So is the sidewalk immediately adjacent to the pavement on Old Reston? No.
No, there'd be a tree zone up against the pavement. You can see it in this plan. It's shown in green.
I
Kind of light
assume
green.
that. I just wanted to check.
Yep.
The then you're gonna have to cover that stormwater ditch that you know, Mika's exactly right, that there is a pitch on Old Reston Avenue. You are going downhill going south. So there's significant stormwater that pours down that ditch. So
Appreciate it.
anyway,
Yeah, we'll talk to
okay,
our civil engineer about that.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
That's it.
Thank
Tammy.
you, Tim.
It looks like Katie's next.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. So, I just wrote down my questions. So I have a question. I know you, and I'm just going to piggyback off what Tammy just said. Where the pond is, I got right now, I'm on Google Earth. It looks like it's really close to the current sidewalk, like, I mean, to the current, curb on Old Reston. I understand when you get up to like American Dream, then it looks like it's like 11 or 12 feet all the way up.
Yeah.
So is your sidewalk going all the way down somehow to the trailhead, or it's gonna just make a crossover at American Dream and then get on their sidewalk? That like
Great
that area.
question. Great question. So that was one of the pieces of input and feedback we got from staff was a desire to connect our sidewalk all the way down to the trail along that frontage. And so you haven't seen the plan yet because we haven't resubmitted the revised version, but we have studied that area and there's enough space within Old Reston Avenue, the current width of the road, as well as that space there, exactly what you're talking about, where we will be able to get a sidewalk to work all the way from our sidewalk that we're building on our property. And this, of course, is the offsite portion that would connect to the trail. So we'll share that drawing once we have something more detailed to share, but we are able to do it. And part of it is because Old Reston Avenue happens to be wider in that area. And so that is a place where we would pull the curb in a little bit to make it fit and get the sidewalk there.
Yeah, okay. So then my other question is, so if you're gonna take it down to the trail, why not like work with the gas station and just take the sidewalk all the way to Sunset Hills? Because if I were to live in your neighborhood, I'd walk down my sidewalk, but then I still got to cross the street anyway to get over to Sunset Hills. Why? You know what I mean? Like, is the
Appreciate it. We haven't
stopping
looked
point?
at that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because I'm
we
just like, you
appreciate
look down a little bit further down the street and there's Sunset Hills. Okay. So that's my question. So then, what area of the fence are you keeping in place? Because you said a part of it is historical. Where, can you show us on the map what area of the fence is actually staying that's not going to be moved?
Yeah.
Mika,
So
do you wanna-
can you
Yeah, go
can you see
ahead.
my screen again?
Yeah.
Okay, so the brick portion of the wall was actually built in, I think it was 67, or it might have been the early 1970s. That portion of the wall is, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but from the curb cut on the far right side of the screen to where this first break is over here, around where this large heritage tree that we're going to do our best to preserve, although it's not in great health today. We're doing what we can to salvage it. This sort of nexus, this corner, is where the brick ends, and then it's a cinder block wall. And if you're on Google Maps, and it's around this is across the street is more or less where the distillery is, you'll see that it transitions to that cinder block wall. And that cinder block wall goes the rest of the way, towards the left side of the page. So we're getting rid of the cinder block wall in its entirety, and we're shifting it up a little bit, and it will look, like the brick wall. There is a break in the brick wall where that sort of transition point occurs in order for the public to be able to access the interior of the site, and that's this walkway. That's actually a really challenging point for us to have identified because of a number of different grade considerations, both east-west and north-south. We have also been in discussions with staff as to sort of the public feeling and accessibility of this lawn by the manor house. And they have requested that we even have a small break in the wall, in the existing brick wall elsewhere, so that it is more inviting and more public in nature. And that's something that we are currently exploring, but don't have anything to share today yet. Unfortunately, it's in the works.
Okay, and then you talked about preserving trees. I understand the ones that currently back up to the condo building, you guys are going to keep those, the ones behind the front loader townhomes. What other trees are you preserving? Because I mean, like if you look along Reston Avenue, these are really old, big trees. So,
Yeah.
but you're talking, I think those are not gonna make it because you're wanting to come closer and build the sidewalk and you gotta go around all the trees. So where are we preserving the trees? Where exactly are you preserving the trees?
Great question. So, so you're right. Along the Stratford property line on the north side of the plan, we have our design to preserve as many of these trees as possible, and we've been quite successful in that. There is, I'll have you know, sort of an ongoing discussion that we're having with staff of the sort of the sidewalk condition along the front loaded homes, which we have a sidewalk strip here that we've done in other properties and has been really successful. It's not quite as wide, but that is again a trade-off to preserve those trees. And that's something that we heard loud and clear from Stratford that we're moving forward with, and you know, pending review from staff. The other trees that we're looking to save, they're really sprinkled throughout, but the ones that are like most critical here are, if you see these, can you see my mouse when I'm
Yeah.
moving it around?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. So this one right here, this big one that is on the lawn, that's the one I mentioned is in poor health, but we actually went out there and we've mulched it and are doing what we can to try and preserve it because it's a wonderful tree. It's beautiful. And we're hoping that it can hang on a little bit more. It's pretty close, and its critical root zone does actually go into the sidewalk area, and so we're going to do our best with that one as best we can. The others that we have more confidence in being able to save are these, what I call the twin trees that are closer to the manor house, and then also another tree over here that is along the sidewalk. A number of the trees that we're maintaining by the pond, the gazebo area will be there as well. And then some trees up, you know, against again the Stratford line on the well, what's on the plan east side now. So they're sprinkled throughout. We tried to take what are sort of the most significant trees, which really are the ones that you have the view shed of from Old Reston Ave, and trying to preserve that. It's on the filing, the existing CDP FDP filing, it should have identified which ones we're preserving and not, if memory serves, and we'll be including that in our upcoming filing as well. So you'll be able to get into the nitty gritty details there in additional detail.
But
Yeah, I mean,
these
I
four
guess,
trees we're showing are the most significant trees you see
By
on
far.
Old Reston Avenue in front of the
Yeah.
house.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you keep saying like, I'll do your best, you guys are gonna do your best, but I really hope like there's some kind of commitment, because these are really old trees, you know,
Agreed.
like they
Yeah.
are a real history when you drive up Reston Ave, like Old Reston Ave, like you see them,
Yeah.
they're beautiful. Okay, and then my final statement, I guess, is I'm not a fan like Tammy and Lynn of the rear, you know, whatever, but to each their own. But I love the look. I love that it goes so well with the home. It is really awesome rendering. So thank you.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much.
Hey, and Katie, just to let you know, we will be calling out which trees are going to be preserved. So that commitment will be there in our
Okay,
approval
good.
documents.
Thank you.
To figure them out.
Is that it, Katie?
Uh,
So,
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Bill, you are up and you are on mute.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I like the presentation. The overall plan seems an attractive one and an improvement over the big office buildings. I like the sidewalks, the publicly accessible open space. I appreciate that it's going to be all electric homes, which I assume mean heat pumps as well. Tell me a few things. One, in terms of trees, just let me make a note, if you can call back up that last slide you had. If you go down to the corner where the sidewalk coming down Old Reston Avenue gets to the WNOD, if somebody is bicycling on the WNOD and comes up to Old Reston Avenue, there is a terrible sight line. The overhanging, I don't know if those are big trees, whether they're bushes or what, but there is, if it's possible to improve the sight line, because cars come you're about to cross and cars come zooming down Old Reston Avenue. And I don't know if anybody's been hit yet, but it's going to happen. And if you can just
There's a
improve
traffic light there.
that, there is, but how many bicyclists pay attention to a traffic light if nobody's coming? Don't think anybody's coming, and so they're going to go out. And I'm just, if you can improve that sight line, it'll benefit both drivers and
Appreciate it. That's good feedback.
In terms, you mentioned that you were going to be doing earthcraft. I have never been able to get all the details on what's in earthcraft. It sounds nice. How does it compare to, say, the I don't know, 2024 IECC? Does it have the same level or higher level of thermal insulation? I mean, the walls, the thermal envelope, or so just how does it compare?
So let us follow up on that. Our architect, our head of architecture, who is the person who handles all that within EYA, is not on the call with us today.
Okay.
But we'll get you that answer.
That's fine. And did you say that the rooftops were going to be usable rooftops?
Yeah. So
Okay.
there'll be on the top floor of the house, there's a bedroom, a bathroom, and a loft kind of open space, and then you go out onto a rooftop deck that people can have a grill, they can have table, chairs, whatever they want up there.
Yeah, no, I've seen that in other places, and it's very attractive to the occupants. So I think that's a good idea. At this stage, I've told you some of the things I like, and just one thought. Consider putting in ceiling fans. That sounds very old-fashioned, but DOE says that a ceiling fan can permit the room temperature to be about 4 degrees higher than it would be set at if there wasn't a ceiling fan.
Interesting.
And that would save a lot of energy. And it's a pretty small investment to put it in, at least into bedrooms, maybe in the main living area. But take a look at that. I think people would benefit from it. Anyway, it looks like a good project. Thanks for the open space, sidewalks, and all the good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Bill. Jared, it looks like you're next.
Sure. Again, thank you all for the presentation. Again, a lot of the same positive comments. I will also just sort of plus one everything Katie said about the sidewalk. I think, Mika, you acknowledged it. You got an interesting challenge there. I'm really curious to see the civil drawings, to see how you're going to get that to work and not take out too many of those existing trees. So other than that, I think my biggest thing you might want to reconsider, honestly, in looking at those elevations, is it too much white? I actually drive by this site all the time. This is on my regular way to work. The white stands out because it's a contrast to what's on the site with the green and even the existing buildings. So I actually had a different thought when I saw those renderings, and that it was almost taking away from the existing manor house because it's trying to be too close. So just another design perspective to consider, because the existing office buildings are sort of a very light, they're a beige color. It can coordinate, but not try to copy. I don't think you want to try to copy.
Interesting. So, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I will say, I think I was the biggest advocate of the white buildings. So that's a slight on me. I know. But yeah, let me also just say too. Go ahead.
Just we have talked about exactly what you were talking about, whether the houses end up being a shade of gray or a slight shade that's different. We've also been talking about the front load units on the backside potentially being, different in color too. So yeah, we don't want it to feel monotonous. And so that's something we'll look into as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, again, I think it's a nice solution. I think that sidewalks are a real challenge with that grade. I've also walked this site multiple times too. So good luck. I look forward to the next iteration.
And Jared, I would just, Jared, also say too, on the sidewalk issue, I'm looking for the exact quote, but I don't think that there was an issue that really was the most challenging that we had to deal with in 2019, and we're dealing with it here, than the sidewalk. And FCDOT really wanted to have a very wide sidewalk. We didn't think we could, in 2019, we didn't think we were able to do it. And the staff report from 2019, there's a quote that I'm looking for that's like, we wanted this, they wanted that. we came together as a compromise to recognize the unique situation of the site. And it was a really good quote. But we're really trying to make, trying to deliver on that connectivity. There's also supposed to be the Reston specific streetscape that has a little bit more informal landscaping and things like that, rather than sort of regimented trees that you might have elsewhere in the TSA. So it's like we're trying to thread the needle on a lot of those.
Yeah, and
So
honestly,
I just wanted to.
that's my concern in been by the site a lot, is that I think what could end up happening is you're going to end up clear cutting everything to get this sidewalk to work, build the new retaining wall, the new little white wall. And what we're going to be left with is really thin little trees with big white buildings behind it, which is not going to be, I think, the aesthetic people want. It's going to change it dramatically over what's there today with the trees that are very close to the street, all those things. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Jeremy.
Yeah. First off, I definitely echo what Jared said about having too much white. I think it's great to look at some other options, especially like that idea of some of the townhouses that are further away from the main road, maybe being a little darker yet, whatever. So I'm glad you're looking at that. Also, just want to comment real quick on two things Bill said. A, I love your comment about the ceiling fan, mostly because you have a ceiling fan right above your head in the screenshot. And I love it when people practice what they preach. But also to answer your question a little bit about the Earthcraft, it's something that I've used on some of the projects that I've designed, and it isn't as, well, first off, there is a range on it, and it's not as, like the minimum range on Earthcraft is not as demanding as the absolute highest end of the lead, but even the basic Earthcraft, I do feel like is a fairly robust, sustainable program. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are going to be using that. What I originally raised my hand for was actually asking for clarity on one thing that was mentioned earlier about street that the county wants to be wider than what you think are able to do. I didn't catch whether that was the private way or the public way that runs through the site.
Great question. Yeah, so within Old Reston Avenue, we're going to try to meet the VDOT standard, which is, it's hard to get around. And so that would be a 6-foot sidewalk. And we think we should be able to do that based upon the space we have there today. And we're getting into the details of that from a civil engineering perspective. Within the project itself, on the private streets, we've typically done 5 feet in every project we've built. And so that's what we've designed here as well. That's a conversation we'll have with staff.
Okay, so it's not so much that the county's asking you to like encroach into your side of the easement. It's just that it's such a steep drop that 6-foot sidewalk leaves you very little to adjust the grades. Okay, I think I understand.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really the wall location more than anything else that restricts, creates that restriction.
Right. Okay. And then, I think the other thing, though, as far as just parking in general, is that I think at least on the screen, it would be the left side. I think that's south in real life. There's the row of townhouses that didn't have any public parking out in front of them. I think it probably would be. It would be better to have a little bit wider street, have that private street be wider there so that there could be some on-street parking, because the on-street parking that you provided that you do have is a long ways from some of those units.
Understood.
And that's it from me.
Thank you, Jeremy. Sue or David.
Yes, I'll start. I wanted to commend your team for starting with the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. It makes it a much better plan, and I imagine that you will run your final plan by them as well. I think this is important, especially because of Jared's and others' concern about too white. They may have, they may support that or have another view on it. The historic garden is also an interesting concept, and I'd kind of like you to think in terms of creating a legacy garden, and maybe even working with a local community organization to research native plants that could go in there or shrubs that could go in there. There are all kinds
Yeah.
of people who share and exchange and swap plants, and they have a lot of historical facts and knowledge about that. And so,
Well, that's great. We'd love that.
let's see. The other thing was, your proposed connection to the W and OD trail. You'll likely have plenty of bikers in this complex, and so be sure to provide lots of bike racks and or bike storage. And I do find it curious about the Bowman House becoming a single-family home. And I guess I'm wondering where that comes from. And I recall a proposal, it's probably 15 plus years ago, in which this was going to be developed into townhomes. And the Bowman House was going to become a historic, almost lodging home, almost like a bed and breakfast for people who live there, for their friends, for their families. When they come, it would be a place that, the people who live there could, have breakfast along with visitors who would go, who would be at the bed and breakfast. And it also, I remember, featuring a catering element where the chef was going to have catering, especially with a historic garden. I could see, just small weddings, small graduations, small events that could possibly, take place in a community of homes like this. And so, I don't know, just explore that. But I am wondering where the idea of a single family house came from.
A great question. So we have explored the idea of the club. That's why we kept that as an opportunity or as an option within our site plan package. Where we're running into is the amount of money it would take to update the building for it to be a publicly accessible, event space or club is pretty extraordinary. And then on top of that, the HOA fee for the houses, the people that actually live there, would be quadruple what a normal townhome HOA would be. So we didn't think from a market perspective we could get the homeowners to think that that's appropriate. We haven't completely gotten away from that idea yet, and that's why it's still in our package, because we are still exploring it. I mean, the bed and breakfast idea is a great one to the extent, somebody wants to buy the house and turn it into a bed and breakfast. That's something we'd have to think through with Andrew from a zoning perspective, but I think that could work with the idea we have. But the single family home, the idea was, this house was a single family home initially. It's going to be set within a lot of single family homes on the site. And so it seemed to make sense from an adjacency perspective. And we felt like there would be a buyer who wants, a beautiful 4,000 to 5,000 square foot, 4 to 5 bedroom house, with this beautiful overlook view. That might be, as a lot of our homeowners are, seniors who don't want to have to maintain as much of a yard anymore, or as much of a house as they once did, and see it as an opportunity to not downsize necessarily, because it's still a big house, but downsize the amount of work and maintenance that they have to do, as everything outside would be taken care of by the HOA. But we are open to ideas, and certainly send them our way.
Did you
I
run
think
the sort of
too, Evan.
clubhouse bed and breakfast idea past the architectural review board to get their opinion on it?
We talked about both the fact that we were looking at as either a historic house or a potential clubhouse for the community with the ARB. We didn't talk about a bed and breakfast, though.
Might have experience in, other localities that have gone in one direction or another. So, okay.
Understood.
And then the last item was I do think the connection of the Bowman House to the gazebo and pond is very important to keep, which I see you are doing. The pond, you mentioned it as a detention pond from, again, 15 plus years ago. I thought that there were sensitive areas, some wetlands in that area, not just a detention pond. Is that correct or not?
I don't know.
I have to look back. I don't think there's anything. I don't think it was a designated wetland area specifically.
If
I
you could
would
just
have to
check
go
into
back
that,
and check.
please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure. I know that we had reviewed the location of the closest built or sort of new any construction that would be occurring near the pond is that sidewalk that's feeding the pond. And I remember reviewing that we were outside of a buffer zone. I don't think it was for a wetland, but we can absolutely check on it.
Please
And-
check on that. Okay.
and
I
I'm
think
looking
Dave
at-
has something. Go ahead.
And so I'm looking at this too. Real quick too, when I think Mika, you all when you guys are doing your evaluation stuff, one of the things too is the parking requirements to have a semi-commercial use, including a clubhouse at this location, versus a single-family home, and just the number of parking spaces, like for weddings and things like that, which intuitively makes a lot of sense. And then we started looking at some of the stuff, but I think we've kept as many options as we can open. The pond, we've traced back the history. There's one resident in the Stratford that's actually gone way back to 1800s about the history of the pond. There's always been some kind of water feature in that location. And then over the years, and especially with the 1986 office buildings, that pond was widened and made broader to serve as stormwater management for those two office buildings. So just FYI on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make this real quick. I want to join the chorus of folks who've offered you some praise about the design, about the concept, about integrating the old house and these new structures. I rather like the echoes of the white surfaces to the house. The only thing I would say about about Old Reston Avenue. I'm not quite clear what VDOT wants to do. And unfortunately, sometimes VDOT does what VDOT wants to do and the heck with everybody else. But I would strenuously suggest you try to avoid widening that road. For those who travel it frequently, it's part of the attraction of that whole street is the fact that the road is narrow. You have to be careful driving it. It's slow, you slow yourself down simply because of the curves. Yes, there are probably some people who come off of Sunset Hills and run that hill past the Sunoco station, and then they don't pay any attention to people crossing on the WNOD trail. But part of that area's charm is that narrow road, and it forces you to slow down. And I would say that if VDOT wants you to widen that at all, I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, we agree. And just, we're not intending anything that would widen the road. We're keeping the curb to curb space the way it is. We're actually, as it gets down towards the trail, we'd be proposing a slight narrowing of the road to make it safer and create room for the sidewalk extension to the trail.
That would make sense.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue and David. Michelle.
Hi, thank you very much. Did you address, I heard you say that this property would not be under Reston Association or Reston Town Center. So your intention is not to join either, or what is the intention right now as far as a larger homeowners association in the area?
Yeah, no, we will be reaching out to both organizations to see if it makes sense for us to go ahead and join. So what I was trying to say, Michelle, is that this is one of the few sites, it's like an out parcel almost, that's not subject to the deed of declaration, and it's not so it's just sitting there. And so yeah, we will be reaching out to both associations, having those discussions.
Okay, it'd be great if by next time you could give us some feedback on how those conversations have gone, specifically with Reston Association, given the proximity to Reston Association clusters and the fact that while there's a lot of great amenities on this site, it cannot provide for everything. And so you will have, as part of our community, just a difference in experience with these homes, not if you don't join Reston Association, not being able to participate and enjoy the facilities as other neighbors would. So it goes a long way to just community cohesiveness and bringing everyone together. And so We really hope that you will consider that and report back next time we see you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Michelle. That was actually going to be one of my comments too. I think that's a really important comment. And I appreciate you going to ARB. I do think that DRB provides also a unique perspective for Reston specifically. And you've heard a lot of comments on the architecture, and I also am struggling with portions of it. Some parts are really well done, but if it's a single family residence, I think you really need to think through the layout a little bit more and how you do those buildings, because it seemed to me it almost looks like they're barracks or some kind of subservient to the big house. And so I would really look at that, because I think that could create a very strange dynamic if it is a single family house. If it's something else like a bed and breakfast, I think that problem goes away. But something for you to think about. And I agree with the comments on the white. It just seemed like too much and needs to be thought through a little bit more. I also, in looking at your landscaping, I believe you need a lot more landscaping, trees and such, especially along the roads. I think in the past, some of the plans that were approved were really not sufficient and not per Reston general design parameters. So I personally want a lot more landscaping, particularly along the roads. I think you did a nice job on some of the internal parks and such, but would definitely really want more landscaping along the roads. And also echo the comment on the parking. And if you are going to keep the single family house, you might need to add some building diversity to the mix, something that blends in more with that house and sort of eases you into the townhomes. I know this is not a big site, so that complicates things for you, but just a comment. And then lastly, question, where are you in meeting the Reston Comprehensive Plan for stormwater retention requirements?
I think, Mika, I'll turn to you, but I think we are meeting it.
Yeah, I have to look back at the specifics, but I believe we're meeting it. I don't. None of our engineers have flagged any issues, and that's our understanding at this time.
Gotcha. Can you maybe you can't comment on this meeting, but where are you in relation to the 1-inch retention requirements?
We can share
That
that
I'd have to
information.
get back.
Yeah,
Yeah, get
our
back to
civil
you.
engineer is not on the call, but we'll get to
Yeah,
that.
gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Mika, this is Jacob at VICA. We
Oh, hey,
are
Jacob.
actually in the process of, we got that comment from staff, and that is, as you know, John, I don't think that is technically that's a comprehensive plan recommending it. So we're going to run those calcs, and then we can probably share those.
Great. Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right. Anyone else from P&Z have a comment or question? Okay. Anyone from the community that would like to comment, or I'm pulling up the chat here, or have any questions? Mark, have you seen anyone wanting to comment at all? I don't see anything in the chat.
I haven't seen any. Commissioner Carter, I believe, is here. If you want to, I'm not sure if you want to invite him to make any comment.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see you. There's a lot of people on this call. Commissioner Carter, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I do have a thought.
Thank you.
I actually would like to send you this picture, maybe for next time. It's a picture of the Old Reston Avenue in the fall, and it's those sycamores are yellow, and there's a lot of other trees here. It's quite photogenic. It's probably the most photogenic, at least north of the toll road, except for Golf Course Island or Golf Course Drive. It's the cross slope there is really steep on this street. I wonder if we need a sidewalk there. You've got a sidewalk next to the townhouses. It may be too late to say that, but this is a rural landscape. It isn't a sort of suburban landscape with lawn panels and a sidewalk and that. So I wonder if you should look at that, because there's just a lot of those trees, and they're quite large along the street, and with that very steep cross slope. DOT is probably having a fit over that, not putting a sidewalk there, but you're basically going to have a double sidewalk. You have one at the curb, and then you have one in front of the townhouses. So I just wonder whether that's a good idea. I hate to see us lose all those trees and the sort of the historic aspect of this sort of rural landscape, the only one we have left in Reston. Anyway, that's all I have to add.
Thank you.
If
I think we're trying too hard on Reston Avenue to do something rather than leaving it in its rural character would I think a better approach. But
great comment. Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Andrew, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No. I think that was one of the first comments that were one of the first observations that we had as a team, and it has nothing to do with like getting out of wanting to pay for it or anything like that. No, I mean even going back to 2019, I was not a fan. I was the zoning attorney at the time. I was not a fan of the sidewalk. I just thought it was trying to engineer something in there that really didn't want to be in there. And but FCDOT, VDOT, I mean, bound and determined to try to get that connection, even though there is I won't say redundant, I don't mean that in a pejorative, but there is a redundant sidewalk on the other side of the street. Yeah. And I think it's worth it. And this is one of the comments that we had with the planning folks when we went through the first round of comments was there's got to be flexibility as it applies to this particular site with all of these sort of litmus test requirements, and you can't just site engineer this thing. It really needs to, there has to be a different approach to some of these requirements, and that sidewalk, that's the thing that we're wrestling with the most. So your observation is right in line with mine.
Yeah, and I think we're trying too hard. I'll send you the photo I have. It's quite spectacular, I think, of Old Reston Avenue and the trees in the fall. It's quite the thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Anything else before we go, Andrew?
No,
or Evid or Mika.
Yeah, it's been great. Like I said, we're going to do our resubmission, and then there's going to be another resubmission and another one after that. We will be back in front of you all well before the Planning Commission. Hopefully the project will evolve. We'll come to some resolution on all these things with the county, and look forward to continued feedback from this group, and we really appreciate it tonight.
When is the Planning Commission?
Zach, do you remember the date on that? Is it in January?
Originally, it was going to be February, and we that date could move. We'd love for it to be February. We hope that it will be, but it could shift.
Great, thank you all for your great presentation and responses.
Right, good seeing all of y'all. Take care.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you. Next case up is Commerce Metro Center. I believe Kelly with DLA Piper. Or Brian?
Yeah, I think Brian's going to take the lead on the presentation. Thanks, John.
Okay, great.
Hi, thanks everybody. Thanks, John, Mr. Chair. Thanks everybody for having us back. I'm Brian Winterhalter, as most of you know, with DLA Piper, here with Kelly on our team, John Harrison with Comstock, and all of the other consultants and disciplines are here. So we brought the full team this evening to chat with you all. I won't go through everybody by name, but when folks chime in during our presentation, just introduce yourselves. Joe Giangrandi with Land Design is going to load our presentation, and we'll get started.
Can somebody give me permission to present?
Yeah, Joe, could you raise your hand so I can see you? I appreciate it. Oh, I meant in the
virtual hand.
Yeah, should have specified. Okay, I see you. Thank you. I'm going to make you a presenter. You should be all set now. Thank you.
Okay. There we go. Can we see?
Looks good to me. I can see it.
All right.
Good to go.
Good to go. Let's move to the next slide, Joe. So if you all can believe it, we last met with you in May of 2022, which obviously is quite some time ago. We had some thoughts on the prior zoning approvals for the property, which we'll talk about again tonight, and walk you through the changes that we've made, many of which are quite significant, which is part of the reason that it's been so long since we've last been back to the P&Z. But at the last meeting, we talked about our changes to the previous entitlements of our NATO plan that you all are familiar with. I think there's some new faces on the P&Z actually since the time that we started this project. So for some of you, this will be new, and for some of you, it'll be a little bit of a recap. So bear with us as we go through some of the old materials. But we talked about improvements to the plan, how we could better activate urban park space on the project and bring some real meaningful open space and real urban park space to the site in a much more significant way than had been approved in the previous plans. We've also done a lot of improvements and spent a lot of time focused on pedestrian access to the metro station, but not just to the metro, also sort of in and around the site, and pedestrian connectivity, not only within the property, but around the property as well, and really fitting our proposed development of this site into the larger neighborhood and the character that's emerging in this area. We talked about stormwater management strategy, some of the environmental commitments that we're proposing with the project. We'll recap some of that here this evening. And then obviously, of course, the architectural design. We've got some great designers on the call who have done some tremendous work on these buildings, and they will give you a bit more detail on that because you want to hear it straight from them rather than from me. Next slide. So here are some of the things that we heard from you at the last meeting. And I know it was a long time ago, but we took good notes and we've made a lot of changes to our plans. And just to walk through these. So we've spent a lot of time with the staff on the Wheelie Avenue, Sunrise Valley Drive streetscapes. We've made significant changes to both public street frontages for various reasons, which we'll get into. There's some significant changes related to what may happen in the future with Wheelie Avenue and the whole Wheelie corridor study. And so we've obviously been following that, as well as some changes along Sunrise Valley Drive based on some constraints, and we'll share that with you as well. Again, we heard about the connectivity of the urban park spaces and a real desire for gathering at the metro station area and how we could better incorporate that in ways that we could make improvements to the plan. We heard loud and clear the desire for a grocery store. I'm going to let John give the big announcement about the grocery store, but we'll come back to that. We also heard the desire for more green roof area and differentiation in the types of green roofs and how we could be a bit more thoughtful about our overall stormwater management and environmental strategies for the site. So we've got some additional information for you on that as well. We also heard a lot about the daycare, and we got some positive feedback from folks in the community about the daycare for reasons that I think are somewhat unfortunate. The daycare is no longer part of the plan, and we'll get into why that is, and maybe it will come back in a future iteration someday. We heard you loud and clear about the request for community engagement. We had follow-up meetings with some of the other adjacent cluster associations after our last meeting with you. Some of those meetings were quite a while ago as well, but just so you are all aware, we reached out to each of the cluster associations that have an association and sent them links to our plans. And then we also mailed letters to all of the folks who live on Upper Lake Drive and on Great Meadow Drive and in those areas because there isn't a formal association. We are going to continue to meet with folks. We offered in those outreach letters to meet with folks if they were interested. Just to let you know sort of where we are overall. We're not yet at a point where we're ready for the Planning Commission public hearing or the board public hearing for that matter. I think we're tentatively potentially scheduled in March for the Planning Commission. So we'll certainly be back here to the P&Z and certainly have opportunities to meet with the other cluster associations and anyone else who would like to meet with us. We've also focused a lot on, like I said, pedestrian and also bicycle connectivity, and some of the safety measures associated with that, and some improvements to our plan for pedestrian and bicycle circulation. And then we heard a lot about parking, our parking strategy, how the parking is going to work in the parking garage, and we'll get into some of that this evening as well. Next slide. So this is just a quick recap. Some of this I already talked about, but in the fall, we met with Weathersfield, Hampton Meadows, and Boston Ridge. We reached out to some other associations as well. We took, frankly, a pretty long detour with Dover Cole, who was a consultant that the county hired to evaluate this project with respect to the overall grid of streets. I think we've come up with some really good solutions for the grid of streets, and we've worked really hard with county DOT and county planning staff as well on what would make the most sense for a transit-oriented development area, and how we could best fit this project into not only the sort of emerging fabric in the metro station area, but also more specifically to help further the creation of a real grid of streets in the area. And we'll show you some of that. But for what it's worth, that took quite a while. So we were on a little bit of a detour, to use the street grid, I guess, analogy, and now we're sort of back on track. And we've then resubmitted our application and then resubmitted again. We just got comments back from county staff today. I will confess that I have not yet read all of them, so I can't talk intelligently about them, but we're happy to share them and happy to talk about what we've had, a lot of discussions we've had with the county to date. And as noted on here, we've had a lot of meetings with the staff. And one of the things that we did as part of this project, frankly, given the significance of the things that we were talking about and how we really wanted to roll up our sleeves and work through a lot of these significant items with the county based on the county's feedback and your feedback as well, we had a lot of sidebar meetings with the county. In fact, we had a sort of rolling series of meetings on various topic issues, and we'll go through a lot of those in the remainder of the presentation. But that took us an awful lot of time, which I think was very productive. It was a very good process, very helpful. We've made a lot of advancements in the plan, but it took a long time, and it was worth it. But that's part of why it's been so long since we met with you. Next slide, Joe. So let's move on to the refresher of where we are, the site, and what we're proposing. So the site is highlighted in pink. That's the Commerce Metro Center property. Just as a reminder for those who are not already aware, Comstock, after they acquired this property, which Vornado had previously entitled, we added 2 properties to that overall consolidation, the bank property at the entrance at Centennial Park Drive. And then we also added the office building that is CMC 6 on the western portion of the site. Next slide. So obviously, you know that Comstock is developing Reston Station and the Row, and that's well underway and has been doing great. And so there's some exciting new news that John may want to share with you when we get to the questions and answers about kind of where that project is going. But wanted to just highlight the overall connectivity here and the opportunities on both the north side and the south side of the metro station, and to really bring this project into the sort of caliber of development that you see on the north side of the station. Next slide. All right, so to recap on the Vornado plans that were approved in December of 2016, this is the configuration. The existing office buildings all remain in place. There were 2 residential buildings on the eastern portion of the property near Wheelie, and then a 3rd building and a 4th building that are sort of tucked in there closer to the metro station area, and then on the south side of the existing Commerce 4 office building. But this is what was previously approved, and it kept all of the existing office buildings in their existing condition, which is one of the challenges that Comstock and the whole design team that are here tonight recognized pretty quickly after Comstock acquired this property, and we all started working on what we could potentially do with it. Next slide, Joe. And one of those challenges is the grade. And so as many of you already know, this site is a little bit of a bowl. It's higher around the edges, and the office buildings in the middle, particularly the Commerce 3 building, are at a lower point than the areas all around the site. And that creates some challenges that we want to overcome with our proposed plan. And then the site also, as you can see, kind of falls away as you're going west, away from the metro station. So that's been important in our thinking and the design approach for the project. Next slide. There's also clearly a sort of jigsaw puzzle of road connections, given some of the property lines and the way they're currently structured. Some of that, frankly, we don't have any control over. We can't, as much as we might like, we can't change property lines without the consent of the other owners, and we can't build stuff on their property without their consent. So, as much as we might like to plan for all this in the future condition, and I can assure you that John would have a plan. We're not quite there yet in terms of some of the other owners in the immediate vicinity. So this is an existing condition that we have to work with, and we're trying to plan the best way to improve that condition both in the interim and facilitate the ultimate future condition in a way that would be better for the overall metro station area. Next slide. The other challenge with the Vornado plan is that it may not be apparent in plan view and certainly not necessarily zoomed out at this level, but there are a lot of pedestrian and vehicular conflicts kind of built into this plan as we started to analyze it. And that is something that we really want to avoid and certainly minimize to the extent that we can. And we've got, I think, a really nice solution to a lot of that separates a lot of the loading and parking functions and separates access points from a lot of where we want kind of the heart of the pedestrian activity and gathering areas. So we'll talk about that as well. Next slide. All right, so how do we make the plan better? So we've got some great ideas. Some of you have seen some of this already, but for those of you who have, humor me because I think there are some really significant things that we're doing. So the first thing that we decided to do was to acknowledge that in order to create the type of urban environment and street presence and pedestrian feel, and really just sort of the whole public pedestrian realm, we needed to get rid of, unfortunately, the CMC3 office building. So that's no small commitment. It's actually a well-leased building and is doing great, but unfortunately it sits in the middle of a bigger, grander plan for Comstock and for the overall metro station area. So decision one is to take down that building. Next slide, please. In order to create the opportunity for a mid-block road. There's really no way to do this with that existing office building in that location. And then, as I said, we had a lot of discussions and a lot of meetings with the county, and Dover Coal did their analysis. And really what in various iterations, everything came back to this mid-block road is important. It's a sort of parallel connection running east-west. The idea is ultimately that it would run to Soapstone when that crosses the toll road and then makes the connection to Sunrise Valley Drive. And then we needed to find another north-south connection. And for important reasons, we didn't want that connection to be going right to the mouth of the metro station because we really felt strongly that we wanted to prioritize the immediate area around the metro station and the plaza that we're creating for a public pedestrian realm rather than a vehicular space. Next slide. So the significant opportunity here is to provide a really significant dose of underground parking as part of raising the grade of the entire eastern half of the site. And when we do that, we are able to develop a plan that would create essentially more or less within a foot or two of grade change, a level area all across this eastern portion of the site, which will have tremendous benefits for pedestrian accessibility, but not only for accessibility, also for actual meaningful gathering spaces that really, frankly, wouldn't be viable with the existing CMC3 office building in its current location. So out with the office building, in with the great pedestrian public realm, and this is one of our significant moves as part of the overall sort of re-envisioning of the site in a much different and frankly much more ambitious way than had been done with the Vornado zoning approvals. Next slide, please. So this is the overall plan. The buildings are more or less the same, but we've moved some of them around and we've made some significant changes to the buildings. But we still have 3 new office buildings. The Jan designed office building at the corner of Wheelie and the toll road ramps that will be in sort of an architectural conversation with the Jan building on the other side of the toll road. So I don't want to try to do any more architecture speak and steal anyone's thunder because I won't be good at it. But we're really excited about that opportunity, and to, again, just like on the north side of the toll road, to bring like stellar world-class architecture to Reston. We've got the hotel, we've opened up some sight lines, we'll talk about that, but that's right near the metro station. We've shifted the Commerce 7 building to the west, and we'll talk about that and what that has done for the design, added a bigger green space there. Commerce 8 on the far west side. And then the residential building has been adjusted because it used to be 2 buildings, and the county staff was really not much of a fan of the sort of muse space in between the 2 buildings. And that concern, and also about people walking like mid-block across Sunrise Valley Drive, they weren't too keen on that idea either, which, you know, understood. And given those concerns and interests, and also the idea of opening up a bigger view shed at Centennial Park Drive, those factors all kind of combining together led to the conclusion that it made a lot more sense to have that be one building that was somewhat more compact than to have 2 separate buildings. So those are the quick overall changes to the plan. And then if you flip to the next slide, we'll go through these, each one of these. I'm going to give you a very quick overview, and then Joe's going to walk through the more specific design changes that we've made along the way. So to start right at the metro station, as I mentioned, we expanded the plaza area around the metro station. We shifted Commerce 7 farther to the west to make that a bigger, more open area. It also has better visibility and better views from the entrance experience when you're coming off of Centennial Park Drive and the loop there. So we've got a lot of good visuals of what that new design proposed condition would be. In sort of going around clockwise to the right, we've enhanced the visibility of the metro station from different areas within the site. So as you're walking through the property and through the public pedestrian realm and the open spaces, you'll get a better view of the metro station area and sort of a more natural kind of wayfinding pattern. We have removed the drop off on Wheelie Avenue. So I know that was quite the contentious item, certainly with County DOT and with VDOT, and I know with this group as well. So that has been removed. We did not move the building any closer to Wheelie Avenue. So the footprint of the office building there is the same, which means we have a much nicer, wider streetscape experience with some outdoor dining opportunities there, and some good designs and illustratives to show you on that as well. I mentioned the residential building is now 1 building. We've moved that building farther to the east on the Centennial Park Drive side to open up that view shed more. And then we've also added the opportunity for a grocer that is built into our CDP FDP. We have a nice big space where we can have a grocery, and that's now incorporated into our plan. In terms of the streetscape on Sunrise Valley Drive, we've made a bunch of improvements there, which Joe's going to walk through in a couple minutes. And then kind of moving a little bit to the west, we continue to have this sort of bridge park, kind of like a mini Highline, if you will, that connects from the plaza area all the way to the west to serve both of the office buildings. And then you can continue to take that path beyond to what would have been our childcare building if it hadn't needed to be removed. And then also to the residential development that is contemplated on the Association Drive assemblage. We've also added the north-south connection, Alley C, as we're calling it in the plan, which is a significant an important connection to help vehicular circulation throughout the property. Just to touch real quick on the vehicular circulation, almost all of the parking and loading for and sort of service functions for the entire eastern half of the property, basically from like the Metro Plaza to the east, all that's underground. So unlike the Vornado plan, we've really minimized any pedestrian conflicts with loading and access areas and service functions. So almost all that is now below grade. We have a significant amount of parking below grade to serve the buildings, which it sort of naturally, by being one large garage, can all be basically shared. So there's good opportunities for that as well. And then again, that helps to raise up the grade and have our nice at grade, more or less level across that entire eastern portion of the site. And just for those of you who haven't seen this plan already, as you're walking to the metro station, you're at grade, and then you just walk right into the station, and our plaza connects right into the metro pedestrian bridge. So you're not going up or down to get into the metro station bridge. You're just walking straight off the plaza, like right into the pedestrian bridge. So those are the quick highlights and overview. And then I'll turn it over to Joe to walk through those in a bit more detail.
Hey everyone, I'm going to walk you through these areas in more detail. I am a urban designer and landscape architect with Land Design. My name is Joe Gingrandia. I'm a principal here. Some of these images are going to be side by side of what it was in our previous submission and what it's going to be now in this latest submission. And then some are just coming before and after with existing conditions and so forth. Starting with the drop-off area and the shift of Commerce 7. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you are seeing where Commerce 7 was. Same view angle with the new application. That building is not in view anymore. You can see a little bit here of Commerce 5, and it's actually beyond that from this view angle. You can see that it opens up the plaza area that we have here with much more program. This is right on the metro, like Brian was saying. I can go in the next slide here, zoomed in here. If you were at this level, if you were at this lawn space, you could walk straight across the Reston Station and be at the plaza at Reston Station. So directly across the, we're punching out of the window that is currently at that station, and there's the access still down below if anybody needed to get there. From this angle, we are seeing the park space, but also a drop-off loop down below that also has access from an elevator at this level to get to the plaza, and also down into the garage. So we got multiple ways people can traverse the area. But as Brian was saying previously, at this level, we can continue on this way, which would connect to our pedestrian bridge to get to Commerce 8, or back to the east towards the Yon building. This is a shot of that multi-use lawn that could be used for programming, kind of pop-up events, sporting events, concerts, and so forth. This is our larger of the open spaces, meant to be flexible. With this view, again, you can see the metro station here, and we have a section later that kind of illustrates how this works with the parking below and so forth. This is a shot. Same area, kind of looking down. We're looking towards the east. We have this pedestrian connection that links our two big spaces together. That's activated with retail and outdoor dining. This is a cross section through this plaza space. We've added some grade spots on here to get an idea of how the grade changes on different areas. So the existing alleyway that is on site now kind of remains in its current elevation, brings you into the garage. And then 31 feet above that is the plaza space and the area that you would use to cross the bridge if you're going to the station or to Reston Station. On the other side, there's a series of monumental steps that bring you up, and the drop-off loop on that side of the park space. So we're about 16 feet there from the alleyway. And again, we're at about 411 next to the metro. The next view you're going to see will be in this location here. We are going to kind of look back this direction at the metro. If you can see my cursor. So to stand in that pedestrian kind of access area, we have a clear line of sight to the metro station from here and the park space. Again, activated with outdoor dining, and then seating and other amenities on the other side. The next view is gonna rotate us 180 degrees to look back the other direction. So this is looking towards the office building, the Yon building. This corridor leads us to the next open space. This one is a little bit more smaller in scale, different kind of vibe. Could also have pop-up events and stuff like that happen too. Really pairing this one with an outdoor dining experience on the retail, to have that synergy of a comfortable and casual space that the residents and guests can use. A couple of views of that. This is on top of the toll road, looking down into the site between the office building and the hotel with that retail and park space. We do have a drop-off loop here that also serves the parking garage near the office, and it's meant to be a pedestrian realm. So this is really to prioritize the pedestrian experience. A lot of the paving patterns and connection points are to emphasize that these areas are for pedestrians and less for cars. It's a couple more views of what that looks like. Again, as Brian was saying, the eastern part of the project is really on top of a parking garage. So this area too would be on top of parking. This one zooms in to show a little bit more detail of what we had last time with the 2 residential buildings being converted into 1. And with that, we have the streetscape experience along Sunrise Valley. With this, we have included a cycle track and a pedestrian area. So we have the 2 modes of transportation, and we've sprinkled in a handful of seating arrangements and like places of pause within that streetscape as well. We have a double row of trees here. So during our extensive working with the county, we did a series of test pits, and I think the next image really shows this well. We did a test pits. There's a lot of utility bundles located here. They're serving buildings throughout Sunrise Valley. With this kind of drove the design to create a design cross section that looks like this with a 5-foot lap, a 10-foot cycle track where the utilities would be to remain there, a 8-foot minimum planting strip that would house our larger trees, and then a 8-foot sidewalk and a 6-foot minimum building zone. The road does curve, and the building articulation is mostly flat, so that planting strip gets bigger in some locations, but it's a 6-foot minimum. And again, extensive test pits, lots of utility bundles that we found along this streetscape. Like Brian mentioned, with this latest application or submission, we removed the drop-off from the Yon building on Wheelie Avenue. What that is envisioned to look like, we see here with open space for people to gather in, and then pairing that again with that retail outdoor dining experience with a heavy tree canopy. A couple images of what that feels like here. Next, we have the northern alleyway. The image on your left is the existing driveway behind the site. On the left-hand side is the toll road. You can see the grade that is existing on site, and that was made a lot of decisions with some of the connections to the new LEC and so forth. With this proposal, we are putting in the DAR trail. So we're gonna have a 10-foot trail that connects to the metro station on the north side of that. It will but it will connect at the kind of where the bus bays used to be, to allow people to use that to get out to Wheelie, but also to get to the metro station from the bottom part. Also, you can see here, this is illustrating, again, we have the park space above, and you can drive underneath into the garage at this location. And another look at that zooming in. So that trail continues up to the metro station. We've added in some on-street parking and tree pits at the county's request as well. For Alley C, previously it was more of a green space that was existing between Commerce 4 and 5 with the new plan, utilizing kind of the grade differential on the alley on the backside. We have included Alley C. You can see here kind of between there, here's our kind of Reston High Line experience. That alley would go underneath that kind of pedestrian bridge. This is that alley. The bridge you can see kind of in the center of your screen, and a version of what that could look like here. So the idea is that if you're working or need to take this route, you are still at metro level, that grade change. You're not having to go down at all or up. You can continue on this way. Yes, again, with the childcare. The childcare was on the previous plan, and that area of the site now is a tree save area on the application. For the master plan, the exterior experience. So a lot of the plan view, you don't really get that sense of all those grade changes we just went through, the cross sections and so forth. So with that, we do have a lot of open space and park space, and we are pairing a lot of that with outdoor dining. Now, none of that's being counted towards our park calculations, but we did think it was an important aspect to help activate some of those park spaces throughout the site. We are also, extensively having pedestrian circulation that connects those spaces, utilizing the comp plan's primary, secondary, and tertiary pedestrian corridors. We also have cycle tracks, shared use paths, and the DAR trail on the north side. Again, with the spot grades, you're looking really at the eastern part of the site is almost at grade. We don't have any situations where we have any slopes greater than 5% for somebody to traverse and get to metro, except for some of the areas that we do have other means for that. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ryan David at Urban to talk about the stormwater management.
Thanks, Joe. You want to switch the slide there? There you go. Thank you. Again, I'm Ryan David. I'm with Urban Engineering and Associates, principal engineer here. We're the civil engineer designer for the project. The slide we're on here now, I'd like to talk a little bit about our environmental improvements, specifically related to our stormwater and the comprehensive plan goals at the county, and how we're meeting and achieving some of that and creating an environmental improvement as it relates to those types of measures. So we've got 5 new buildings as part of this development. 3 of the buildings are retained as existing. For the 5 new buildings, we're going to be implementing extensive green roofs on those buildings. So all 5 buildings will have a component of extensive green roof. You can see that here with the Commerce 8, 7 on the left-hand side, and then over to the right-hand side, it's almost hard to see the buildings because you've got green roofs and stuff on them, but each of the buildings will have an extensive green roof, and that extensive green roof includes a media of up to 6 inches with plantings and stuff on it. Most of you are starting to become familiar with those, and so that type of a media will be implemented on these all the new roofs of the new buildings. Then what we've got is, as Joe had kind of showed you in one of the earlier slides, a section. The majority of the eastern half of the project is on a podium, so there's meaning that there's parking below. And so we're using intensive green roofs in this area. It's essentially, a green roof. The podium is like a building, so there's not soil media, native soil media directly underneath that surface. So you've got parking below. So we're doing a series of intensive green roofs. And so the intensive green roof is media depths of soil that can be anywhere from 6 inches to multiple feet. And so we've got a series of that throughout the site that would pick up surface water and the water that would hit, those areas. And that happens throughout the plaza, predominantly on that eastern side of the project. And in addition to those measures, we've got bioretentions, and there's different types of bioretentions that we're incorporating into the site. Some of you may be familiar with rain gardens. We've got some rain gardens that are going to be dispersed kind of in between some of the existing office buildings over to the western side of the left side of the graphic. But then we've got other bioretentions, which would be tree box filters like you would see along a roadway. You see a lot of these in Tyson's now. You're starting to see more of them come up in Reston. And so that would pick up the surface runoff that would come off the street and filter into these tree box filters that would run along the side of the streets. And so that's happening internally on our internal street areas. And then in addition to those bioretentions, we've also got tree planters that would be dispersed in some of the plazas. You may recall from some of the graphics Joe had up there earlier where you would see somebody sitting on a bench and there was a planter area behind them. We'll be using some of those tree planters for bioretention stormwater design as well. And so those three types of measures, I would call those non-structural measures. And then we've got some structural measures like underground stormwater vaults, where we're detaining runoff from the development. There's really no detention that happens on this site today that previously was managed through off-site stormwater facilities. Most of us that have spent much time in Reston, know some of the flooding issues that have happened along Sunset Hills Road north of here. So we want to make sure that we implement stormwater detention devices as well as our other innovative BMPs and land development design. But we want to get those vaults in here to manage the larger storm events, the 2, the 10, the 100-year storms. So we've dispersed a lot of underground vaults. That type of detention never existed on this project, and so there will be an extensive amount of detention that we're going to provide to help mitigate that situation that was occurring downstream over on Sunset Hills Road. So in addition to that, we've also got some not as much highlighted on here, but manufactured filter devices to just add another extra level of water quality filtration from the overall project. So we're using a wide palette of different stormwater controls to meet the comprehensive plan goals of the county's ordinance, which also puts us well above and beyond what just the regular state stormwater controls would require. Turn it back over to you there, Joe.
Who was next on our list? Can somebody from our team cover the environmental considerations?
Sure, I'll jump in and talk about that. Hi, everybody. I'm John Becker with Becker Architects. I'm an architect, and I'll be speaking later in the presentation, so I'll talk a little bit about this too. There's a pretty good commitment for sustainability. You can see LEED for the silver for the non-residential buildings, LEED for the residential building. Obviously we'll have EV charging stations as part of our LEED pursuit. And then we've made a commitment to do some carbon capture in storage through carbon cure concrete, which is kind of an innovative process where they take the carbon that they've pulled out of other means and then inject it back into the concrete so it's embedded in there and not into the atmosphere. Okay, next slide.
Great. I'll take it from here. Good evening, Maria Laschinger. I'm a principal with Grove Slate Associates. We are the transportation consultants for the application. So I'll briefly run through the transportation study process. On the next slide here actually outlines the process that we're required to go through with both VDOT and FCDOT. It's a multi-step process, multi-month, sometimes a year or more process, starting with the beginning with a VDOT Chapter 870 determination process. It's a process by which we look at the number of trips that the new site will be generating compared to what was there previously or previously approved. In this instance, the determination process pointed to the need for a full-blown VDOT Chapter 870 traffic impact study. So that's the process that we are currently in right now. The next step that was to actually sit down with staff, both VDOT and SCDOT, to outline, to scope the study, outline the methodologies, contents of that study, get approval from all parties to understand that and agree that that's what's going to go into the study and how we're going to do it. We then embark upon the process to do the study. We go out, collect the data. That's vehicular counts, pedestrian counts, bicycle counts. We do a full inventory of the existing infrastructure for all modes of transportation. We prepare that study and then we go ahead and submit it to staff. Staff receives it, they review it, that comment on it. We respond to those comments, and you can see the arrows there. That is an iterative process. The second submission of that TIA is under review right now. We are expecting approval hopefully in a minute here, but that is the final step of that process there, is to approve the study. On the next slide, shows what we studied. We started this process in 2024, so that is our existing conditions analysis. We then looked at phase one, when phase one comes online, what the analysis looks like there. We also made a comparison to what happens in that same year, 2028, without this development. Fast forward, same thing for the full build out or phase two, both with and without the development. And then we go one step further. Once the site's fully built out, we actually project out 6 years into the future beyond full build out to understand what would be happening in the future. So in this instance, it's 2036, both with and without the site development. On the next slide shows the number of intersections that we studied. So you can see 11 different intersections along Sunrise Valley, and then up Wheelie Avenue all the way up to Sunset Hills Road as well. So all the key intersections adjacent to and in the vicinity of the site, including the toll road ramps across there as well. On the next slide is just an existing aerial, right? We're all familiar with what's out there today, but some of the key considerations from a transportation perspective, access to the metro is fairly difficult today. There are different grades out there. There's gates out there. So the goal for this site is to unlock access to the metro through to the site, not just for pedestrians and vehicles, but bicyclists and all modes through the site. So on the next slide here, I know Joe outlined some of the access previously to the site, but this is a vehicular access map, right? Showing the new roads, access points through the site. Obviously the key points being here, the new right on Wheelie Avenue, as well as a new traffic signal down on Sunrise Valley, just to the west of Wheelie. In the pink there, you can see access to the garage, ins and outs throughout the site, multiple points of ingress egress for the various garages throughout the site. You can see the kind of the middle of the site, kind of the blue arrows there outlining the pickup drop-off areas off of that central east-west spine road, if you will. On the next slide, yep, thank you. So this slide is kind of speaking to how it's zoomed out a little bit. You can see there's lots of colors on here, but it just shows how the site ties into what's out there already and some of the constraints that we have with the toll road being on the north side. But it shows too what everybody else has been doing around us, right? With TF Cornerstone over to the east and what they're doing to tie the pedestrians down to Sunrise Valley, and what folks have already done and built to the west. This just shows how we tie into the broader network for all modes, right? For the new roads that we're tying in, and that, as well as the new pedestrian and bicycle pathways. On the next slide, dials it in just a little bit more. Again, Joe walked through the primary, secondary, tertiary pedestrian pathways. You can see that cycle track in orange down along Sunrise Valley, and how we're inviting folks to the site, through the site. The bright yellow in the middle highlights the crosswalks that'll be introduced, right? Having safe pedestrian crossings at stop signs and getting folks up to and through to the metro. And with that, yep, I'll turn it over and talk about architecture.
All right. Okay. It's late. It's been a long presentation. We're in the home stretch. Proud of you guys for staying with us. But speaking as an architect, from our architect's point of view, we saved the best for last. So we're going to be focusing in particular on the two buildings that are the most impact to the neighbors. And that's the residential building and the office building. So in looking at, this is a view that is looking north along Sunrise Valley, and at the bottom of the image, and Wheelie is kind of over on the right. The master plan puts the taller commercial buildings against the toll road where they're the happiest, and also it steps the massing down to the south towards existing residential neighborhoods across Sunrise Valley. The buildings engage the street, which contributes to kind of a passive security by placing more eyeballs on the street. It also has a bit of a traffic calming effect with more visual friction than open spaces provide, so folks slow down a little bit. I think what we'll do is I'll have Phil talk about the next few slides, and then I'll come back to wrap up with the residential building. So, Phil.
Okay, thank you. I'm Philip Castillo. I am the managing director of architecture at Jan Architecture in Chicago. We were engaged into this process to design a signature statement for Commerce Metro Center as a Class A office building. And the whole idea, was to really kind of do a building that performs well, a building that has a strong visual character. And next slide, please. And a building that actually is designed to complement 1900 Reston, which we designed across the Dulles Tollway. So the idea that my co-collaborator and that Helmut Jan had was that this formed a gateway to Reston. Next slide. And particular attention was paid in programming the space with Comstock to actually have a strong presence, a strong pedestrian presence from both the plaza side and with restaurants, obviously the lobby, the big, tall, transparent glass walls to make this really kind of an inviting atmosphere. Next slide, please. And then also, as we go around the corner onto Wheelie, shows that road, the access road from Wheelie, restaurants, opportunities for outdoor dining. And, as I said, when the drop off went away, we did not move the building. We kept the building away so that there was a nice landscape cushion between Wheelie and the east facade of the building. So there was always kind of this sensitivity to the urban environment that was being created around and throughout this complex. Next, I will turn it over to John.
All right, thanks. So this is a view along Wheelie as it terminates into Sunrise Valley on the left side of the image. Phil's office building is on the right. The residential building is to the left. This image gives a good view of Massing, kind of stepping down towards Sunrise Valley. And I think the one thing we'll talk about a little bit more is the residential building has a variety of expressions. This facade incorporates, we wanted to relate to the office building, and but we couldn't, as a residential building, it's more difficult to tilt it. But we found one of the things that we really liked about the building is this large mega grid that we've incorporated onto this facade. So there's a subtle kind of relationship that is a gesture to the office building. So next slide. Okay, this is a view along what we've creatively named Road A. So we're taking suggestions for the naming of the street, but it is looking at the north facade of the residential building. So we mentioned a little bit ago that we've employed a number of tactics to break up the facade and add visual interest and variety. So when we combine these buildings, it used to be two, we've combined them to one. We wanted to make sure that we still had the ability to break this down into more human scale massing. And so one of the things we've done is we've used different materials, colors, different window expressions. We've looked at the strategic locations of balconies. We've also looked at deep inset areas that help make the building feel like it's breaking up. We've angled the facade. And then on top of all of that, we've broken up the building height. So these all help to break down the building to more human scale. In addition to the main lobby entry, which is kind of at the center of this image, we also have a number of retail spaces that will open up out onto the street and help engage and enliven the street. So next view. All right, so this is a view along Sunrise Valley at Centennial Park, looking into the site. The residential building fills most of the slide foreground. You can see more of the varied facade expression here. And just to the left edge of the slide, a second residential entry is provided to help engage the building with that street as well. Again, to kind of humanize it, get more eyeballs on the street. The cycle track, as Joe mentioned earlier, continues along the front of this building. We've got a planted buffer against the building, and at some point that planted buffer is deep enough that allows patios along the base of the building too. So again, there's more engagement and then passive security. And so this is the last slide of the presentation. So I will turn it open to folks for questions, comments, complaints, or anything else.
All right. Thank you for the excellent presentation. Looks like Lynn, you are first up.
I'm quick to push that button, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, bring it. Yeah, that's great.
I wanted to thank you all for this this great presentation. Quite a few changes from the last, and I do have quite a few comments. First of all, I do want to extend the committee's condolences at the loss of Helmut John. So getting to the first question that I have, looking at the second Jane building, is the setback from Wheelie Avenue the same as the building that's on the north side?
No, I think the geometry, the site conditions made it slightly different. It's, so and besides that, the site is actually kinked, so Wheelie, the site along for 1900 Reston isn't in line with the site for One Commerce Center. It's slightly kinked to the left. So it was not really possible to kind of have that same setback.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is a little further back, but as it was pointed out, that other building's on a bit of an angle. So the narrower spot on that building that's to the north is a lot more narrow than this one is. There's a little more space on this one, a little bit more of an outdoor plaza area.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. The majority of my comments, I'm going to be focusing on the proffer statements that you've put forward, Brian. So I've got I've got about 6 comments, and I will be quick and address them. Item number 39, tree replacement. This says that the applicant will provide an equivalent street tree elsewhere within the property if something has to be removed due to a utility conflict or site distance considerations or other final engineering considerations. And my question is, will the tree be of the same size as the one that is being removed?
It should be, yes.
Okay.
And by the way, the purpose of that proffer is to allow some necessary flexibility in terms of layouts and coordination with VDOT and the fire marshal and so on during the processing of the site plan and development. So in terms of
it kills me when we have projects that are coming to fruition and we see these beautiful hardwoods being clear cut and smaller trees being put in. So if they're of the same size, that's great news.
So I think, to be clear, I think most of the trees that would be relocated are trees that we were proposing to plant already. They're new trees that are going somewhere else than they would have been. And to that point, by the way, and I know you want to run through your list really quickly, but we spent a lot of time, as you saw in the utility test pits, making sure that we don't have conflicts where we can't plant trees where we're showing them because of utility constraints. Instead of waiting to do those test pits later and finding out we have a problem, Comstock decided to do them now, so we know we don't have a problem. So we are better off than almost every other plan that comes through because we've done a lot of that work already.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item number 42, I guess this is probably better requested to or addressed to Ryan David on the stormwater management goals. So it reads that the stormwater management system is designed to meet at full build out a 2-year 24-hour peak flow rate reduction that meets or exceeds a 30% reduction over existing conditions, and a stormwater quality design that exceeds the redevelopment standard and meets the new development standard that's in your plans that you submitted.
Yes.
Huge plans, by the way. So the thing that I'm questioning is where it says that at full build out, the applicant will retain approximately 47% of the first inch of rainfall on the site. And I did appreciate the designation of where the vaults are being located. But my question is, shouldn't this be higher?
Yeah, we've studied that, and we looked at different ways that we could try to achieve it. Obviously through green roofs, and there are provisions when we do our buyer retention along the side of the roadways. You can only send a certain amount to them. So we really got into a pretty deep design on that, and we found that was definitely achievable. The 0.47 inches that we could achieve. Could we get a little bit more? I think that we can try to, but at the end of the day, I think part of the overall goal is to help the overall stormwater in the community. And I think that the volume reduction is going to have, or the peak runoff reduction for that downstream stormwater facilities. I mean, we talk about these smaller rain events. Yes, the smaller rain events we can achieve. We can achieve some of that with the smaller rain events, but once you go over that smaller rain event, that's going to hurt that downstream improvement. And so if we can do detention for those larger events, I think it helps meet some of those larger goals. It's not that we're completely disregarding those smaller events, because we are providing a significant amount of green roof and a significant amount of extensive.
For the smaller, but it's the larger ones that are increasing in frequency. And as you all made mention, the flow goes from north to south. And, I think that we did a pretty poor job on some of the developments previously in terms of stormwater management. So I think that if you could eke out a little bit more, that would be awesome for the larger storm events.
Yeah, and I think we can do that. And I think we can focus a little bit on that 100-year storm design to do a little bit detention with that as well.
Thank you. The next item is under transportation improvements. And this is item number 47. There's a missing number. So this is the contribution for the future Wheelie Avenue improvements. So I'm just wondering how much the applicant's planning on contributing to Fairfax County.
Yeah, so we don't have an exact number. And the reason we don't have an exact number is not because we're trying to pick a number out of a hat, but we are trying to figure out essentially the cost differential between the conditions that we're proposing to build in our current plan and what the ultimate Wheelie streetscape condition might be in the future, and how we could make a contribution to go from A to B. So that was the idea, but we haven't finished costing all that out yet. So we don't have the right number, but in concept, that was the idea.
Okay, got it. Item number 56, this is affordable housing. Can you tell me if you're going to be providing any ADUs? There's a lot of information about your WDUs, but I really don't see anything on ADUs.
So we are not proposing to provide any ADUs. The construction type for the residential building, as I'm sure you probably all already know, would make it exempt from ADUs. So we'd be proposing WDUs. And in terms of, the one thing that I'm sure you also all know is that at this point, there is less of a distinction between ADUs and WDUs, as the income tiers for WDUs have been reduced by the county. So there's now some overlap between a WDU and an ADU.
Well, I think that we're missing providing affordable dwelling units to folks that are under the 60% AMI category. But I've made my point, so thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you.
And then the last one, and thank you, Brian, for clarifying that. So when we were talking about the park facilities, and I see that there's something listed in the proffers of dog walking facilities that we didn't really address. And there are a lot of people in Reston that have dogs. And it says the applicant will provide a minimum of 1 dog walking area within any of the private amenity spaces. And I'm just wondering, is 1 enough?
Well, we often say 1 per building. And so we've got 1 residential building, so we said 1. I'm sure we could probably find a spot for some additional dog walking areas.
Okay, that would be awesome. Thank you. That was all I had.
Thank you, Lynn.
Sure.
Thank you, Lynn. William. You're muted.
There,
William.
we're good.
Thank you.
Okay, first on the detention vaults that seem to be mostly gray. Have you considered using any detention in your vegetated roofs, or are there any vegetated roofs on the tops of these buildings or upper levels as
Yes.
opposed to, okay. So
Yes, we have, and we do have some areas for that. And obviously, as I pointed out earlier too, there's the podium, which is the garage. It may be difficult to see in some of the graphics, but obviously, the majority of the eastern side of the project is on a podium. So that's a plaza level sitting on top of a garage. And that's where there's a sprinkling of the intensive green roofs in that area as well.
Okay, so what kind of system are you looking at for those?
Well, we haven't selected the exact system yet. Obviously, we're still kind of in these conceptual stages, but the intent is to make them, not using the same terminology, but as intensive as possible,
Right. Yeah, because it's like the underlying system under the actual fill that I was asking about, because there's some really nice products by multiple manufacturers that have been tested for a high level ability of water detention, basically a sponge roof almost.
Right.
And using mineral wool insulation as a sponge, interestingly enough. Okay. And you do have vegetated roofs on upper level roofs as well?
Yes.
Okay. So my big question then is, have you considered the possibility of urban agriculture on some of these upper levels or even the plaza level areas?
I mean, we haven't specifically, other than that would probably be utilized in the areas that we've allocated as intensive green roofs, where we would just use that technique as opposed to, another technique. So I think the answer is that I think that level of detail will come a little further in our planning and space programming, but we have allocated the spaces, areas to be used for those types of, call it green roofs, whether it's the agricultural type or just your traditional green roof.
Right, because it's becoming something that is spreading and is spreading here in Reston. For instance, the Reston Next area, which is at the other station and on the other side of the highway, is going to have a lot of agricultural roofs on its top. Interesting enough, the amount of harvest that comes from these vegetated roofs that are urban agriculture are in the thousands of pounds, not just a small amount. And a lot of them are working where it's not just going to a local people buying them, but through charitable organizations that distribute the food to other organizations that actually consume them. So that's becoming a very strong move very recently in the area. And if you're not aware of them, Fairfax Urban Agricultural Work Group is very involved in that as well. And one of the largest groups that are providing the maintenance for the vegetated roof that's an urban farm, as well as the harvesting and planting, is called Up Top Acres, and they have multiple sites up and down the East Coast now, but a number of them that are downtown in DC. That's where they started from. Some of these have been in operation now for more than 10 years. And interestingly enough, some of them, because there many times were retroactively installed on a membrane that really couldn't take it, they used actual raised bed planters, and they still get considerable harvest from those. another existing one. There's one somewhere, and I don't know which one it is, on one of the very tall buildings on the opposite side that's down towards uh, the Parkway more. So I would like to see some of that as it develops over time. Because one of the things that I've always thought was interesting, because two of my buildings downtown were converted without our knowledge about 3 years after they were built. And one of them was a high-rise residential building that had 2 levels on it. And all of the vegetated roofs that are urban agriculture, it's a great marketing thing to be able to say, oh, and listen, your young children can look out the window or the balcony and watch harvesting and planting and everything else going on. And all of these roofs, this company that does the maintenance on it, set up tours for schools and other interested people. So it might be something to check into because there's a lot of this going on now. And basically, that's my ploy, other than to say that all my buildings keep being torn down. The one that's being torn down there is one of my early ones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, can I just address that for a brief moment? This is Jason Abbey with Perkins Eastman Architects. I have a pretty good experience with doing a number of agricultural roofs. We did a community garden at the wharf where there's a raised planter bed series that I do want to put emphasis on the raised planter component of that. Having community members going after your roof membrane with their shovels can be deleterious to the waterproofing performance of the green roof, and so getting that up into a planter bed that is isolated from the green roof and the waterproof membrane specifically is an important component to consider. Irrigation's another one that you got to think about, and how the water is brought to the agricultural facilities. But they're great community building assets, as well as just production components of a green roof. People come together and till soil together and plant and grow and watch things nourish and flourish. It's as you said, Wayne, a wonderful asset for children and
as to add on to that, all of the ones that are going up around here are not for individuals that may live there to raise things of their own in the raised bed planters, but it is all maintained by a agricultural group. Its name is Up Top Acres, and they're well aware of what has to happen or not happen. The 2 buildings of mine that were downtown, which one is an office building and is a residential building, are all done by this company. And then they're doing the ones out here for the Reston Next group that's building some 5 or 6 buildings with agriculture on all of them.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Jason. Looks like Bill Penniman.
Thank you. It's late, so I'm going to just skim through things fairly quickly and put them in the category of comments. If you want to comment back, I would welcome it, but in the interest of speed, I will go speedily. First, I noticed that you have a plan for 78% non-residential when it's supposed to be a 50-50 balance, and I think that's a problem. I think it should be closer to the 50-50, even recognizing that you have some existing buildings you would like to maintain. It's an imbalance for what we're trying to achieve near the subway. And also obviously office buildings aren't filling fast, and judging from what happened across the street with Marriott, hotel space isn't necessarily going to be filling fast. So I would like you to reconsider that balance.
Bill, real quick on that point, I know you want to move fast, but I will say, we've been thinking about that a lot. We've been talking to the county staff about that a lot as well. And we also are keeping in mind that if you look at the larger area from Wheelie to Soapstone, there is a significant component of residential proposed there and far less, in fact, really no new non-residential in that area. So if you look at it over a broader perspective, it more or less, I'm not going to say it's exact, but it more or less balances out. So there is, if that project ends up moving forward, which we hope it does, there would be a healthy component of residential at the metro station area, just for what it's worth.
Yeah, so I don't think the comprehensive plan is written to say you can take into account what somebody else does up the road. Personally, I do find that argument somewhat persuasive, but it's not in the comp plan, and I still think 78% is too high.
Well, for what it's worth, we're in the process of trying to change the comprehensive plan to allow that to happen. So just for what it's worth, not depend on somebody else, but change it for the overall, change it for that land area between Wheelie and Soapstone. So I'm with you there.
I've been on your side of that argument before I lost, so I hope you lose too.
I know.
Looking at the parking, I think the podium approach is terrific. I think that's a great way of approaching it. Getting it underground parking is what we need rather than above ground. But I also note that you are about 74% overparked, according to the data you provide. Over 5,200 spaces provided and only 3,000 required. That's a lot of extra parking. I hope a casino isn't what the reason is for that.
Just because you mentioned it, just to be I couldn't be any clearer. There is no casino as part of this plan. It will never happen. It has to be specifically noted on the plan. It is not in our plan. There's no casino. I will tell you, however, to more specifically answer your question, and I know you want to move quickly, and so do I. So I'm happy to follow up. Happy to follow up in more discussions about this. What we're trying to do is two things: take existing office buildings, which have a higher parking ratio than the current ratios that would be recommended or are recommended in the comprehensive plan. And there's a lot of existing lease obligations for that space. And we need to honor those obligations. And we also have what we think, and really what John and Comstock think, is the right market rate for the new uses. And what's happening, and we can go through this in more detail another time, and I'm happy to do it. But what the way that the plan is working and the parking strategy is that as the new office space comes online, the parking ratio per square foot of office is going down, and it's sort of gradually going down. So it's not as significant as it looks at first glance, and we can go through that with you in more detail. But there is a market rate that we think we need to hit, and we are reducing the office ratio over time as we bring on the additional office buildings.
Looking at the amount of empty parking space underground across the other side of the toll road, I don't know if you really need to build that much, but I think a better idea would be to take advantage of the underground parking you're putting in and close up some of those open space parking lots that you still show. I think it'd be better to get rid of those and turn that space into something useful, whether it's play space or tennis courts or whatever. But
we don't have a lot of surface parking, but the one thing that for what it's worth, the one thing that we can't do is underpark the parking garage, because once we build the under garage parking once, it's kind of done. So we don't have the opportunity to fix it at that point.
Okay. The other thing is, if you're going to have the underground garage over next to Wheelie, you might take advantage of that depth and go ahead and build a tunnel underneath over to the other side of Wheelie and resolve the problem everybody's been talking about for building a bridge or lots of crosswalks across Wheelie. You don't need to comment on that, but I think it's something worth thinking about.
That one I'll choose not to comment on. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. The buildings you're putting up along the toll road, you have 3. They're all 16 stories and they're all rectangular. And I would ask you to consider varying the heights so that you can have up and down. I don't care. I'm a fan of tall buildings, so I'm not objecting to the height. I'm just objecting to the uniformity and the fact that everything is a boring rectangle apart from the yawn building. And if you can put curves in or do something to make it more attractive, that would be good. Is the 7-story residential building going to be stick built?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Yes.
type 3A construction over 1A, so it's a 5/2.
Okay, I just wondered. The preserving the three buildings in the middle is going to look weird, I think, but ultimately you have to sell the project. But I still think that's going to look weird. In terms of pathways, there needs to be a pathway from those residential developments and other developments west of the metro station, basically so people can walk straight along close to the toll road, straight line to the subway or something close to a straight line, rather than have to go back out to the Sunrise Valley to add a few blocks to their walk, come back down and then back a few blocks. So take a look. That's something you can coordinate with your fellow builders along the toll road, because I think everybody would agree that would be beneficial. So just put that in to think about.
We do have the trail along the toll road, just real quick, we do have the trail along the toll road, and then the development plans to the west at Association Drive continue that same trail across. So that connection along the south side of the toll road, on the north side of where our property is, that connection goes all the way across, going west.
Okay, down to the next set of developments past the pond?
Down to the next set of, all the way through Association Drive.
You need to take
Soapstone. And then the trail is supposed to continue under, so when Soapstone comes across, the trail is going to go under the Soapstone Bridge and will continue farther west.
Okay. I mean, it shouldn't be hard to do. There's space that's not being used over there. It would just be very beneficial. In terms of lead silver, that seems to me is too low. You should be going for lead gold or platinum. And I hope the county staff volunteers you, or however that's done. EV charging, I urge you to look at the IECC's appendix for commercial EV charging and hit that target. The 5% and 2% numbers, I believe, are too low and will be an impediment to a rental in the future, in addition to an impediment to tenants who want to use EVs. Oh, you also had a huge number for bicycle parking, 5 times the amount you need. And I know your bike advocates will say that's great. I'm not sure what you'll do with the space if it turns out to be too much, but I note that. Are these going to be all electric buildings?
I don't know that we've determined that yet, quite honestly.
Okay, well, I encourage you to do that, because ultimately all electric buildings with heat pumps, and I know there are now in large commercial and industrial style heat pumps, will save you energy and be consistent with the general environmental goals that Reston and the county have. Bird safe windows, I know the draft policy plan says that that's going to be required. Are you planning to put those in?
Yes, absolutely. That's something that
we have like the standard bird protection proffers in our proffer statement. So yeah.
Okay, we can talk later what that means, but thank you.
Sure.
And then lastly, on the stormwater management, in your presentation, you talked about the water flowing up to Sunset Hills. Lynn said something about the water flowing from north to south. Which way does the water flow off of your property?
South to north. It goes. The property drains across the toll road to the north.
Okay, and then what? And then goes down eventually into Lake Fairfax Park?
Yeah, it goes down to basically that crossing at Sunset Hills where there was that flooding event, in 2011 to that point right there. That's where it crosses and goes into the golf course on the other side of that and the trail there.
Okay, when you talk to the county staff, just make sure that, that there's ultimately enough protection for those downstream properties, including Lake Fairfax Park. So that's it for my comments today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Michelle.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much. Let's see. I have a few questions. I think the first would be starting with the pedestrian experience. I'm looking at it just from the perspective of somebody who lives in walking distance to the south of this property. So, what can you explain to me why there are two double right lanes off of Wheelie as you turn in? So you can turn right in that mid block, and then it turns into two right lanes. What is the purpose of that? And it seems like that would be a conflict for pedestrians now having to, uh, how does that work?
So it's really, there's a right turn lane that kind of extends prior to the mid-block entry that we put in there. There's a right turn lane that just extends all the way back up almost to the bridge. And so that lane marking you're seeing there is that one. And then we're adding our own turn lane. So in that area, it's really a through lane as opposed to a turn lane at that one spot. So the arrow may be just misleading.
Well, on the plans, it shows when you actually turn in, you have two lanes. So on the property, there are two lanes going west. You turn in off of one lane and it turns into two lanes going west.
Are you referring to as you come south across the toll road bridge?
Yes, I am.
That's what you're referring to, right? And then as you come
Yes.
down, you've got a right turn lane. So if you go all the way down to the intersection and then kind of work your way back, that's kind of where you'll see that. So it's really a through lane until you get to the intersection at Sunrise Valley. But that's
I
essentially
understand that.
right.
That's not
She's
what I
talking
think.
about Street A.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, if I'm understanding you correctly, Michelle, you're saying you're going south on Wheelie, you turn right onto Street A, going through the
Yes.
site, and there's two
Yes.
lanes instead of one. And why is that?
Right. Why is that?
Oh, the two lanes internal to the site. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, Maria, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but essentially, as you come into the site, then there is another. You can peel off if you make that right turn, you're into the site, then you can kind of peel off to the north because that's a relatively short dimension there. We've added the extra lane just to make sure that it doesn't back up towards Whaley Ave. Maria, I don't know if you want to talk more to that.
That's exactly what it is, to get those right turning vehicles out of the flow of traffic so that folks can continue to go straight and the traffic is not backing up into Wheelie.
So that might be great for for traffic, but from a pedestrian standpoint, for people who live south and want to go north on Wheelie, our only means of going north on Wheelie is using that bridge and that sidewalk. Because there is not a sidewalk on the other side of Wheelie. We cannot use the other side of Wheelie. And so now we're going to have to compete with these cars that think they have a through lane and can just keep going and not necessarily have to stop. And then they're going to get confused by what was one through lane turns into two options while you have pedestrians trying to cross there.
The southbound right from Wheelie will not have a stop sign, so that'll be unimpeded.
Right.
So it's only folks exiting. Yep. It'll be one lane of traffic. It will open up into two, but only one vehicle will be able to make that movement at a time.
I think that's going to be exceptionally confusing, and I think it disregards the pedestrian safety of those of us who don't live in this development but need to use that sidewalk. Because again, that's our only means of getting across the toll road. So I'd like to request that you guys reconsider that. On that same point, it was a significant problem, I think personally, with the build out of the Comstock property to the north, where we really didn't have a sidewalk. We couldn't use that intersection was really challenging for quite some time. You're talking about doing a lot of work here, and there was some talk about temporary paths, but it was all internal. What are we going to do when we want to cross Wheelie on a bike or, as a pedestrian during construction and build out? What is your plan for that?
So your question was to cross Wheelie. Are you referring?
I'm sorry,
to...
cross the toll road, to take Wheelie across the toll road. Forgive me.
So,
Michelle, I think
yeah.
since it's the only sidewalk, we would maintain some pathway across there.
Right.
But that did not occur in previous build. So can we have that in writing? Can we have some assurances that we will have a means to get across the toll road?
Yeah, with respect to the north, there was a sidewalk on the other side.
Right, and VDOT would require us to do pedestrian, they call it pedestrian MOT or maintenance of traffic. You know, I've done site plans up and down this corridor, and similar to when we did the development on the north side of the toll road, we did a pedestrian MOT plan when that project was being built, and we actually built a completely new sidewalk temporarily while the operation was going on. So we will have to do that. We will do that.
Okay, it would just be nice if you acknowledged that this is more than just this intersection and this this intersection and this area is more than just the property that Comstock owns and is building. This is used by, all of South Reston. And so it would be great to have that acknowledged a little bit more. Let's see, I personally believe that this mid-block entrance is a real hazard to pedestrians trying to get over the toll road. I don't know that I have a chance to change that, but personally, I just think that this is really creating a bad interaction with pedestrian and cars, especially cars coming directly off the toll road or coming fast over Wheelie. But that's just something that, I've thought for quite some time. Brian, I've told you that before. I really think that this is doing a disservice to those of us who walk there. Okay, but that's a comment, not a question. Let's see. So, how many of the parking spaces in the new garage will be for Metro parking?
Do you mean like reserved for Metro, like commuter parking spaces?
Yeah.
0.
Will it be accessible to Metro riders?
Yeah, it will. It's public parking as well as parking for the occupants of the buildings.
Okay. But there's no plans.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I think the county would really like us not to build any more Metro parking because their garage is not as full as it needs to be.
Okay. And then there's no plans then for any type of a kiss and ride? It's just the drop off? And is that drop off publicly accessible?
The drop off will be publicly accessible. And there are actually multiple different drop off opportunities within the site. There is one in the center of the plan where you can be dropped off and then walk up or take the elevator up to the plaza level. And then the other is essentially underneath where the big green space is on the plan near the metro station, pedestrian bridge at the plaza level there. Below that, in the image that Joe showed, where you have the trail along the toll road and you're going under the plaza level, you can go around and circulate in there, and there's essentially like a drop off area there as well.
Okay.
But there is no formal like Metro kiss and ride.
Okay, where you could do temporary parking of any kind. It's drop off and go.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. The cycle track, it is, when it's built, it'll just be a cycle track to kind of nowhere. What's going to happen? It's very limited.
So yes, it would go just the extent of our project. We don't have the ability to build that cycle track on the adjoining properties. Obviously, this is what Fairfax County's desires are to have, is this type of cycle track. So as other pieces of development expand in the future, they will extend that.
And it would connect to the shared use trail on the adjacent property. And then there is a cycle track on the Russell further to the west.
Right.
Okay. Does the cycle track extend up north on Wheelie? No. So what's the bike,
So
a
there's
cyclist
a,
experience on Wheelie?
yeah, so the wheelie, the prescription of pedestrian or cycle on wheelie is a on-road bike lane. And so we are proposing that on-road bike lane on our side, and the development to our east also proposes an on-road bike lane on their project. So ultimately, when wheelie is completed, there will be on-road bike lanes. And then there will also be the pedestrian sidewalk outside of that, along the property frontage.
Okay.
And that's, just to be clear, that's when those are completed under current county plans. But with the sort of revisioning of the character of Wheelie Avenue, that could change the bike lane condition in the sort of, I don't want to say long distant future, because I hope it's sooner than that, but whatever the ultimate result of that, the implementation of that plan would be, could change that.
Okay. And then a cyclist going into the property from the mid block is just on the same in the same lane as the through lane that you're constructing, right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. With the crosswalks that you'll be constructing inside the property, will there be stop signs also?
Well, there will
Are there
be
any
stop
yeah.
sign in some
Mhm.
locations. Obviously, Road A would be a through movement through there. There most likely wouldn't be a stop along Road A between Wheelie and Centennial.
Okay, because that's the other, if we're looking at this again, that this is more than just, people who are already inside there, but people have to come in. And for people in the south, specifically the southeast, to get to the metro, that would be one primary way to go. But you'd have a crosswalk and just have to hope that the cars stop, even though you're creating a throughway, right?
Right. At Centennial, we would anticipate there will be a stop there. I think that's where the location you're referring to. So if you're coming from the south, from that residential neighborhood, south of Sunrise Valley, as you walk along Centennial up towards the metro, and you come to the intersection with Centennial and Road A, that would be a stop condition for you to cross through there, and then you'd walk, and you'd have the options to go up the stairs, or there's an elevator at that location to be able to go up, because there's that Joe had showed that slide earlier. That was an elevated drop off right there. So
Yeah, that's
that's where
not
you would come.
quite what I was talking about. I was referring to the homes to the east of that. So those who would go up Wheelie and then make a left on the new, is it Street A? The new mid-block street.
Yeah,
right.
I follow
And
you,
then,
Michelle. I understand what
yeah.
you're saying. I
And
get
then
it. We'll take a look at
And
that.
that's something we can evaluate there, whether we add a stop at that location.
Okay, because yeah, again, I just, right now access to the metro is, fairly easy for those in the neighborhood who are walking there, to a certain extent. Though I do think you will be doing some great improvements. So I'm not trying to say that this is all criticism here, but I do feel right now in what's been presented, we're kind of missing out on protecting and enhancing it also for a group of people who need to use this as well. And specifically just with pedestrian safety, I'm really concerned with some of the interactions with pedestrians and vehicles. Okay, let's see. With in the proffers, it says a temporary use could be for special events. Was there any intended special event? What were you thinking there with that proffer?
So we were thinking things like you would see in Reston Town Center, like, the art festival, the, wine festival, movie, like any of those sort
Okay,
of outdoor street festival type things.
okay, okay. Okay, great. Just wanted to get a better idea for what you were thinking. Let's see. So the Yon building, are you anticipating that it will be lit up similar to, sorry, colloquially, the wedge? You know, are you anticipating it's going to be the same with the same level of lights?
As the existing Yon building on the north side, probably similar.
Yes. Okay, I think that would be something that that you might want to reconsider from a neighborhood perspective, especially given the close proximity to existing residential neighborhoods. Um, in fact, yeah, I think you really should. I want to reiterate Bill's point that, you can do better than lead silver. So it'd be great to see you guys come back with something better. I know that you definitely can. Um, let's see. On page seven, I think it was slide 17 and a few others afterwards, you reflect a picture of the current or of the neighborhood, and it has these tall white buildings or blocks on top of existing residential homes that are pretty small. I'm just wondering what's up with that, and can you explain just why we're seeing that presented that way? That was page 17 of the presentation, or slide 17.
Yeah, so that's a rendering engine that tries to show massing like you would get on a GIS. We can make sure that doesn't represent that inaccurately in future slides and so forth.
I think that would be good because these are, not tall homes at all. And so it seemed a little not great to see them then represented as these tall buildings. Um, uh, let's see. Also, it is the new Yon building, is it the same size as the same height as the one on the north side? Or is it going to be taller?
It's going to be taller.
By how many floors?
It's
Or
hard to say
feet?
because
Yeah.
it's actually, I can't say exactly how many feet, but the floor heights are a little bit different. It has taller grounded second floors than the 1900 Reston does.
Right. Okay. It seems, again, given the proximity to existing residential neighborhoods that are not tall homes, that's a bit extreme. I don't see why that would be larger or taller than the one to the north. That this is, I recognize there's a thought and a belief that we're going to see substantial change across the street, but it's been years when we haven't seen much. I don't know, Brian, unless you know something's coming up soon. So right now, what we would be looking at is a massive building in very close proximity to, again, that smaller density residential neighborhoods. And so it just very much seems out of place and could be for quite some time. Let's see. Those, I think, were some of my main points. I do want to say I do appreciate quite a bit of the work that was done. So, I think that there still is some room for improvement, especially with making it work with the neighborhood and with the neighbors. And so I'd like to see that and hope to see that. I also have two questions. One, I already know the answer to, but can we get a proffer saying that there will be no casino? Um,
Sure.
Great. And then also, you had mentioned at the beginning that there was some good news as far as a grocery goes or some other types of development. Did you already, was there more to share? It seems like there was more to share. Have you shared it all?
John, I didn't want to steal John's thunder, so I'm turning it over to him
No,
and he's going to give you news.
So, Michelle, we found a way to fit the grocery size footprint inside the residential building at the west side of it.
Okay, great. Do you have anybody lined up? Or anybody you're thinking of?
I've got a couple ideas, but it's people that are in the, let's say, 12,000 to 20,000 square foot range is probably the right kind of group. We would look at both, regional or local folks as well as national tenants, because we want to, bring diversity in the tenant offering to the project.
That would be great. I love Mom's Organics. There's a lot of great options, so this is good to see. And I do hope when you guys come back, we can see even further changes and make this work for the whole community. So I'm sure I'll have more, and Brian, I'll send you thoughts as they come up. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure, please do. I'm happy to chat anytime, always, of course.
Thank you, Michelle. Tammy, thanks for being patient.
Thank you. And to the crew, Comstock crew, massive improvements over the last time. Some of my comments I will, be echoing things other people have said, but I'm going to say them so that you get that I'm also concerned about this. But first of all, regarding the grocery store, is it Comstock also looking for a grocery on the northeast quadrant of the Dulles Wheelie intersection? And wouldn't two small groceries be competitive? We have been promised a grocery, excuse me, since Tall Oaks was destroyed. And those people have no walkable grocery. So the idea was at least they could walk down Wheelie south to closer. Putting it in this building seems redundant, and I'm not excited about it. Michelle may be excited about it. It's closer to her house, but she can walk across Wheelie and get to the other one too. So there's a ton of people in Tall Oaks that have no walkable grocery anywhere. So I just want to point that out.
I think I'll just, Tammy, real quick, if I may. There are two, John can correct me, but they are two pretty different sized footprints, and I don't think that it's one or the other. They are two different options.
So we might get both?
I think that's possible, yes.
Well, we've had a hell of a time getting one, so I'm thrilled if there are two. So, and I would think in the lower level of the new residential, there would be ample opportunity for some recreation facilities for the 520 or 540 dwelling units going in there. Question, is all parking in this development in the garage paid?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any on-street parking?
There's some. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, is it ADA type of parking and also metered?
I don't believe the on-street parking is metered.
Okay. Is it ADA?
No, there won't be
Is
an
it
ADA
specified
space
for
on
ADA? Reserved for ADA?
There will be ADA spaces in the garage.
Right.
Correct.
We don't have an ADA space planned for the on-street parking.
Okay. Alrighty. My question is, you have touted and excitedly featured a fair amount of retail. Will that be enough to actually attract shoppers, or are you planning that to be metro traffic plus the residential from the 540 DUs? What's the goal there of the synergy of the retail that you're trying to accommodate?
Our goal is to get as many people from the community to the property as possible.
Okay. Having all paid parking, will there be free after business hours?
Usually the way the paid parking works for the retail and dining folks is there's essentially a grace period involved, or you get validation.
Perfect. Alrighty. Will the residential building be condos for sale, or will it be rental?
It's being developed as for rent.
It is being developed for rent, because you had something in there about condos. To that effect, there was something somewhere about the WDUs might be converted to off-site WDUs. What's with that?
It
So,
would be, go ahead, Brian.
well, I was going to say, so we have heard from Supervisor Alcorn that he is interested in the opportunity of having a light tech affordable housing building, as I've heard him describe it anyway, on the north side and the south side of each of the metro stations in Reston. And one of the things that is or could be an option to help facilitate that would be utilizing contributions from a project like ours, for example, to support other affordable housing in the metro station area. So that is one thing that we want to be able to at least discuss as an option with folks.
Okay, and what was the phrase you used that Supervisor Alcorn was?
Yeah, it's an acronym, LIHTC, for Low Income Housing Tax Credit Building. It's the way that
Thank
most of the counties. So as you guys may know, almost every county, the Fairfax County Redevelopment Housing Authority, all of their joint development, like the ones that are done by RFPs for all affordable housing buildings, the county puts some amount of county funding itself, like cash basically, into most of those projects. So if there's a way to support a project like that with a contribution from us in the metro station area, it's something that we want to have a discussion about as being an option on the table.
Okay, super. Thank you for describing that. I was like, when I read that, I was like, what? Okay, one suggestion that might help with the concern that Michelle had about safety for pedestrians and bicyclists and auto users and trucks, whatever. If you adopted a colored strip section for the pavement, for example, when the bike lane goes onto Wheelie, have that be one color that is identifiable as bike. And it might also work for pedestrian and also for, motorized vehicles. That has been used very successfully elsewhere to promote safety in roadways. Maria probably knows all about it. With Bill Penniman, super encourage all electric buildings. Next question. Where you have promised a dog park? I didn't see it anywhere on the plan. However, in that glorious space right outside the metro, that is the green downset little, with the wall and the seats around it, there's a zillion dogs in there. And I want to just tell you, I was walking through Reston Town Center, going to the Grace Gallery or TEFRA or whatever they're calling it now, and walked by the water feature in that bottom park, and the dogs were doing their stuff all over the grass. And the lady I was with was having a heart attack. And she actually went over and discovered that the grass in RTC is artificial turf and there was a lady, a maintenance person there with a hose, hosing it down because dogs were there, as were little kids playing in the water feature there. So you have this fabulous seating area, but you also have crazy people who bring their dogs and let them do the stuff in public areas. And your drawing didn't help my peace of mind with that. So I don't know how you protect that area to be actually usable when people, where is your dog park? Do you have it? I didn't see it on the plan.
We didn't get that far yet on the plans. We don't have a specific designated spot on the plans. I think we were probably thinking it would be near the multifamily residential building, so people with dogs who live there could take their dog out for a walk and the dog can, do its business. But that's not to say that it's the only dog area, and I'm clearly not qualified as a designer of any sort, but with all the great folks on this team, I feel like we can probably come up with an appropriate dog solution.
And hopefully there will be signage for that glorious little lawn spot, the circular spot with the seats around it right outside the metro. So that what's happening over at RTC doesn't happen to you all.
Yep, understood.
Okay, please reconsider lighting the Yon building. That I will tell you, I know people who live on the north side across the golf course, and you would be shocked at night about how offensive the currently existing Yon building is since they put lights on it. Before they put lights on it, it was fine. With all those lights, it looks like Las Vegas, and it's bad. The DTR bus ramp is shown on one of your drawings in the set plan as still being there. That's not going to be there, right? Those are going to be taken away?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And I super appreciated that you have the accessibility plan already for construction of this huge project. How long do you anticipate the actual construction of this massive and wonderful underground garage will be? How long?
If history is any guide, Tammy, it'll probably take about 3 years to go
Okay.
from the start of excavation down to the bottom of the hole and then back up again.
Okay. And obviously you're securing enough support for a giant 340-foot high Yon building on top of 5 floors of garage. So that must mean a ton of pillars. What is the expected cost of the entire project of not only phase 1 but phase 2? Do you have a guesstimate of how much Comstock is putting into this? We heard the other side was billions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be equivalent to what we've done at Reston Row scale of investment.
You don't think it'll be more?
Well, it all depends
It's
on
bigger.
what happens with pricing. Well, I mean, for the phase 1 is probably it's because of the wood construction type. It's probably a little less for that building, but I mean, the first phase will be pretty close to where we ended up at the Row.
So what was that?
I think it was just in the paper at like 1.3 or 1.3 plus billion.
Okay. So you have a lead escrow fund, and I completely agree with Bill and Michelle. Lead silver is minimal. So please, please, please push that, at least for the Yon building. I was shocked that the Yon building would be lead silver. I would have thought for sure that would have been lead platinum or gold at least. But the escrow fund, et cetera, considering the whole price of the whole project is in it and of itself significant, starting from zero, but to total cost, not that much. And I surely hope that you can do a little better than silver. Who provides the ongoing maintenance of the new trees and landscaping?
I believe we're under bond for a period of time for every new project to maintain the landscaping.
Yeah, but after your bond goes away, who in perpetuity takes care of it?
It's Comstock.
Yeah, it's Comstock.
It is Comstock.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't leave it to VDOT.
Thank you. Well, VDOT wouldn't be interior of your project anyway. So,
right. But
yeah, thank you.
They didn't want to be. They wanted to be interior.
Well, they can't build on your garage. So there you go. Okay, thank you so much. And again, I really, really appreciate what you're saying. And by the way, Bill Penniman's idea of a tunnel under Wheelie is not horrendous. I would love that. for the people that need to get east to west and west to east. That would be symbiotic for both your development and your neighbor to the east. So don't just say that's a hell no. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate your hard work. Look forward to your next event.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. It looks like Bill and Michelle have their hands up again. Is that the case?
It is for me. If
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted for clarification on one thing with the traffic light at Centennial. There's a number of contingencies to submit applications for this. Have you had any comments from staff? Do you think you will be able to get this traffic light, or do you see this as being a major issue?
Hey, Michelle, the traffic study actually includes preliminary signal warrant analysis. So the warrants point toward the ability to install the traffic signal based on volumes that exist today and future volumes. That intersection spacing also meets VDOT intersection spacing. So I don't foresee any concerns about getting that installed there.
Okay, and in terms of phasing, when would that occur? Of being installed?
Have it in the traffic study, we have it with full build out of everything. And that's how the proffers are also written.
Full build
Right,
out.
correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Brian, is that correct? We wouldn't see a traffic light until full build out?
I believe we analyzed it in the TIA with phase 1 of the development.
Yeah, I think it comes with the first phase, Michelle.
With the first phase. Do you mind?
I apologize.
That's okay. Okay. And then walking through just the phasing, it's the residential building first is what you're thinking? Or what was the phasing?
So I think in the materials that we submitted, we bring in phases for each building, but the intent is that the podium has to come up as one structure. So the ground gets established essentially with the first phase, first building that comes.
Okay. I know you're going to remove the building that's fully leased. Have you spoken with the tenants? What happens do they have, will they be able to relocate? I imagine the rents will be different once you build this new building, but what will happen to those local jobs and those local businesses?
So I think a lot of those folks have plans to either relocate inside the property or within other buildings that we have. So we're working on a plan to. I'd say probably the only one that's not likely to stick around is the daycare facility.
The daycare facility. Okay.
Yeah, that essentially their play area has to be removed as part of the first phase of development when we demolish about half of the easternmost parking deck, and there's really no way to accommodate them, and nor do we really want kids adjacent to a construction site.
Okay. Let's see, Brian, also you mentioned with that Supervisor Alcorn wants 100% affordable buildings on both sides of each metro. Is that what you said?
Just to clarify, he has thrown out to me in conversations that it would be sort of a goal of his, like I guess an informal goal, if you will, to have at least one all affordable building on the north side and the south side of each metro station.
Okay, but this would be counter to the plan where we were hoping to have affordable housing integrated within development and not pushed off to the side as one unit, as one building, right?
It's not necessarily an either or. It could be both. So, those types of things are to be determined.
Okay. Okay. And do you have any idea where he's considering or anything of that nature?
No, I don't. Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not that specific. It's not that there are specific sites or there are specific plans that Like, I don't know any more than I've just described to you. That sort of as a general sort of informal goal, he would like to see more all affordable buildings in the metro station areas in Reston.
Okay. My reason for asking is, as you know, the TSA extends, I believe, all the way to Hunter Mill, but that, of course, would not be in walking distance. So just want to get an idea if these would be buildings, that are truly metro accessible or just, happen to fall within what we've
Yeah,
defined as the TSA.
I don't think that was the intent.
Yeah.
So we've, like as an example, part of the reason this conversation come up was we were talking about a potential project on a site, not with Comstock, not with this team, and he made that comment to me about it'd be nice if we could have all affordable light tech building here, and we ought to have at least one on each side of the metro. And he said that several times. So there are some in that particular project which isn't ready for prime time, which is why you guys haven't seen it yet, but hopefully you will from me at some point. That there's an opportunity, right? And that's in a metro station area. It's not like off farther away. It'd be very easily walkable to metro in that circumstance. That's what he was talking about.
Okay. Just wanted some clarification because this was a big, we wanted to make sure that we didn't see a lot of taking the affordable housing and moving it off site to a location that, really wasn't achieving the same goals and was different. But I guess more to be seen there. So,
Yeah.
okay. And then the traffic on Centennial is going to be a major issue because that is how people might have multiple entrances. But if you're going to go back out to the toll road, got to go on that road. And that is already a problem today. And so I really think you'll need to do a lot of community outreach on that and make sure that you're addressing the needs of the community and make sure that you're not cutting off Great Meadow and turning it into an island where they can't get out. And I'd really like to see that done as soon in the process as possible. So that's it for me now. I mean it this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Commissioner Carter, would you like to make some comments?
Just a couple. I don't want to go through the whole thing. Somebody said that the existing buildings and the proposed might look weird. I think that was Bill Penniman, but I think it doesn't work. I think the alley, the size of those buildings, 7 and 8, and the so-called high line, I think that doesn't work. You need more space or less space or something. But you can't have buildings on an alley. You need to have a street back there, right? Or it needs to be where the high line is. I don't know. I think that whole relationship doesn't work. The loading, where the parking is, you spend a lot of time with the loading, except I don't know where the loading is for 5 and 6. So anyway, Sunset Hills, I think what you're planning to do is good, but what you end up with is not going to be good. We have I'm not putting this on your lap, but I think what we have on Reston Parkway on both sides from the toll road to Sunrise Valley is not our best foot forward. And I would urge you to take a look at that. I think VDOT has pretty much trashed those areas. So I think you're going to need a little more space there. The hotel placement, I think that the hotel doesn't work. You're using the park space again, like you do on the north side for loading and service. I think you need a better drop off and a better parking access, and maybe some help there on that hotel placement. It seems in the back with no access. Then the metro station itself, I think some more time on metro. Short-term parking, how the elevator works. We need to get pedestrians there, but we also need emergency vehicles to get up there as close as possible. I'm not saying they're going to drive out on the bridge, but closer to that would be good. And then my last thing is we need to go over the street and park placemaking details of that. You've got things like rain gardens next to on-street parking. We can't do that. There will be handicap parking for the on-street parking, the crosswalks, those little details. And we're just, we started doing that at the Planning Commission, so it would be good to go over that. Then my last comment is, that data table, my goodness, come on. One page on the data table with everything spelled out clearly. Why are you asking for the 0.5 FAR addition? I don't know that people are opposed, but why are you asking for it? And just because you're there probably is not a good enough answer. Level of service at the intersections, what is it? And then you've got these cross easements. You're relying on the adjacent properties to get to your project, particularly access to Sunset Hills and then access to the west. So do you have cross easements worked out with those? The balance of land uses, that might work with Association Drive, but I'm not sure we have a clear picture of what that is. And then a phasing. Do you have a phasing plan of showing what gets built when, particularly how the parking relates to the variety of buildings? Anyway, I don't want to keep going on and on, but the key points to me are that building 7 and 8 and 5 and 6, how those go together. Again, I don't think they go together now. Sunset Hills design, hotels, street placement, the metro station itself, and some of those placemaking details. That would be my list. But I'll get back to you with my whole list. Maybe we can summarize this whole thing, but might be good.
Yeah, please do. We'll take a look at it. I think some of the information you're asking about is in our plans, but we can walk through it with you.
Yeah, I just want it a little bit better. In some cases, quite a lot better, but we'll work on that.
Yep.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Carter. Anyone else from Planning and Zoning have any questions, comments? I don't see any hands raised. Is there anyone in the community that would like to speak?
Oh, I have one more question. Sorry. When is
Okay.
the Planning Commission date? On my chart, it says November 19th. Are you moving that date or what? What's our status?
Did you say November?
Yes, that's what's on my sheet.
We were never scheduled.
That's way out of date. I think you might be looking at something else, because I don't know that we were ever scheduled for that date. But regardless, the last schedule, I think we were hoping for March.
Okay. All right.
We have some time, and we'll be back. We'll be back to talk with you, of course, and we'll be back to talk with the full committee.
Good meeting.
All right. Thank you. Anything else, Brian or anyone else?
No, we had a lot of information, a lot of materials. I know we had a long presentation and a good discussion here, and thanks for sticking with us. We certainly appreciate it. We're really excited about the project, and we'll keep plugging away, and we'll be back to you guys soon.
That's great. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
All right. So last item on our agenda is the P&Z meeting operations. I want to thank, I don't remember all the people that were on the committee with you, Lynn, but you and I have been interacting with the document, and really thought, I see Tammy's hand is raised.
Tammy was on, William Peggy's. Did you have a question, Tammy?
Yes, we have
some
some people who are not on the committee still in the meeting, and they need to be dismissed so we can do our administrative stuff. Jennifer Juszczyk is not on the committee. John, you're okay.
Well,
You probably go away because you can rest.
Is this an
Well-
executive session? Because if it's not executive session, it is open to the public. And even executive session, likely we shouldn't go into unless there's specific reasons.
Yeah.
Or
agreed.
are we going to be like RA now? Yeah, let's not go there, Michelle.
I don't see why we wouldn't have things open to the public, though.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think we can have this
Okay.
discussion and move forward here. So I just want to thank the people on the committee. I think was David on the committee with you?
David, yeah.
Okay. And just thank you all for spending the time to work through this and sort of analyze all the various things and solicit feedback from the committee. I appreciate that. I read your agreement, what you came up with at the beginning of this meeting as a test case, and personally, I like it. Certainly, we can modify it if we need to. But does anyone have any comments or want to talk about it?
I thought it sounded good. It was brief. It flowed really well, and I like it the way it is, actually.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I have a suggestion, if you would.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Take a look at I'm actually the chair of the commission's bylaws committee. Take a look at our bylaws. It doesn't mean you have to copy them. I just would think it would be worth looking at. And our bylaws, for the most part, not in every case, are in sync with what the supervisors do. So how meetings are conducted and who gets to speak when and all those things. It's in our bylaws, and I think it's easy to get to it. So I'm not saying necessarily do it that way, because I think you're your own committee. You should do what you think is right, but it might be worth taking a look at it before you.
Yeah, and John, this was the language that the chairman read at the beginning of the meeting, just to let people know. But I think I do have a copy of the Planning Commission bylaws that I can send it to the chairman if you would like to look at them.
The Planning Commission just pours over this. We spent a lot of time on bylaws.
All right. Okay. Yeah, we could take a look at it. Tammy, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I thought I'm sorry, Jared, that your comments were late. And Lynn was stuck with trying to make everything come together, and that's not who you are. So I'm going to think you were in Mongolia or something and couldn't get to your computer. But I thought your few additions were perfect. These are citizens of Reston, Restonians. They are not necessarily Fairfax County or anybody else. So I thought that addition and some of the other things you brought up. And why don't you make the case for your few changes? Because you know what they were.
Sure.
I didn't see anything that I thought was objectionable.
So I was close. I wasn't in Mongolia, but you're not going to have sympathy because I was in Hawaii for 10 days, disconnected, touring a variety of islands. So I'm not going to get any sympathy. I know that.
Yeah, no, you're not.
I'm not. And
no, but you will get an apology from me, because I was like trying to get through all of these plans that I had to get through plus two.
No, it was.
Yeah, you're a dead man now for admitting that.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest. I enjoyed it. I totally disconnected. But yeah, so I added those comments because one part of it was clarifying the citizen part. And John, you did it today too. You kind of ad-libbed, which was good. At least you said like citizens of Reston. I think we need to be careful that that's who we want to listen to, right? Because we're the Reston Planning and Zoning. We don't want outsiders coming in and taking over our meetings. So that's why I tried to clarify that language. And then there was the part about muting people, which is a very technical thing. You kind of skipped it, which maybe is the way to do it. Like, but acknowledge that if somebody's being either disruptive or disrespectful, that there's that they can be removed from the meeting. Because I think that's the key to the whole thing is we don't want somebody to just keep being a burden and blocking us from doing our work.
Sure. Yeah, I did think about that, Jared, in advance. And I thought about reading it and I thought about not reading it. And I decided not to read it and to just use it as a tool.
Right.
Is necessary.
I think that the intent of the committee was to create the language that John would read at the beginning of the meeting to set the stage. And then if somebody oversteps the bound, then you read the subsequent statement.
Yeah, that's how I was reading it too.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if you look at tonight's meeting, we didn't have any comments or anyone, but there will be from time to time cases that are controversial. So it's good that we have this, but hopefully it's not a common occurrence
Well, and
where we
to
have
that
issues.
To that point, John, in all the years I've been on P&Z, we've had one incident, and that was the golf course. And so I don't want to use a sledgehammer to kill a flea, but I thought the way you read it was great, and the few minor adjustments that Jared made, albeit because he's too sunburned to see after he comes back from Hawaii, added stuff without a whole bunch of verbiage. So, I really liked his changes. And you having the ability to read something in front of you and not have to make it up every time is perfect.
Oh, it's great. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so thank you everyone for that. So let me propose this. Since Jared had some comments, John just made asked us to look at something. Why don't we take between now and October's meeting and just put final touches on it, and then we can vote on it at October's meeting? Does that sound okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So because I will be heading the next Monday's meeting, I will read what you read.
I think so. Unless someone's vehemently opposed, I think it's fine as is for now, and then we can make it just a little bit better.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Tammy, by the way. That wasn't my intent, but you know how life goes.
Oh yeah, no, I just, it's something that we have to have in our repertoire to handle if and when we need it, so that we stay civilized.
Yes, ma'am. And just a reminder that the meeting is next Monday, September 22nd at 6:30.
Well, wait a minute. That's one thing we need to also discuss.
Oh.
Are we changing our time forever? I would like the whole committee to vote on that. I am okay if we have a very heavy schedule, but if we only have one presentation, I prefer to stay minimum starting at 7. We have a lot of people who work here, and they have to get home. They have to eat something so they can think. And 7 is, I appreciate you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, John, but most people don't do that. So I think for the majority wellness, 7 would be the earliest that I would be comfortable with. I don't know. And do we have 15 of us here? I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can we just make this kind of simple
8, 9, 10, 11.
And just say, John, you're the one who has the agenda, and you should decide whether we need the extra half an hour or an hour. If we don't, we start at 7:30. If we need more time, then let us know in advance, and you just make the decision.
Well, that's all well and good, David, but we have other people that we have to consider, and one of them is Mark, who facilitates our meeting. I mean, we're so grateful that he does that, but we have to set a time so he can plan around that. And then we have our presenters have to have a time that they know we start. So being super flexible and changing depending on whatever has its problems, I think.
How many times in the past have we had this many issues to discuss in a night? And especially two long ones like this. I would recommend we go back to 7:30, period, except for the rare occasions when we have either two or one really long one, and just leave it at 7:30.
Okay, I
We
thought
don't-
that
we
we
don't
had
need to
agreed
get
to go to
complicated here.
6:30 at the last meeting.
Yeah, a lot. There's
Permanently.
a fair amount of people that were fine with 6:30, and some people that had issues with their getting home from work requested 6:30 versus 6. And I think everyone's going to have different schedules, right? We all are, so we need to come to some kind of agreement. But
Well, we
you
have
know,
to,
this
we don't have 15 of us here today. We
Yeah.
did before, at the end of our meeting, but they've disappeared for admin, they've disappeared. So how about if we discuss this next
I have a
week?
question. I have a question for Mark. Is 6:30 better for you or 7:30?
I think for me and also for the presenters, this is part of our job, so we can adjust. I think, whatever works best for the volunteers of the committee, is what we should go with, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for me, we've been going for 4 hours now, and this is way past when I actually normally am going to bed. And there may be others that fall into that category as well. And so, we're just trying to find a happy medium for everyone as best we can. So maybe Tammy's idea for 7 is a good compromise. But we can talk about it also during our next October meeting if we can all start thinking about it. And maybe I could send out a poll and just get some like
That's a good idea.
6:37, 7:30, and see who gets the most votes, and then in the October meeting we can take a vote on that. And Katie, I see your hand is up.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Yeah, hey, just a quick thought for the new members on our committee, like when they applied, filled out the application. I don't remember, I did it so long ago, but did it say that they were like applying for a committee that started at 7:30? I mean, maybe it's the kind of thing we have to ask people, can you move it earlier than 7:30? Because really maybe some people, I mean, I do work, but I'm usually like home long before 6. But I don't know about our other new committee members. Maybe they really can't come before 7:30. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll do the poll and see what seems to work best, and then we can do a vote, in October. Go ahead,
And
Tammy.
don't forget for this meeting, for this month, we were supposed to have SPAs in addition to these two. And that was way too much. So we agreed to have an extra session next Monday. Now it is lucky that Supervisor Alcorn would be able to do the SSPAs on the 22nd as well. So, and also y'all need to know the county is changing their policy manual, and there are things in it that we need to discuss so that you're aware of them. And maybe I haven't had a chance to talk to Supervisor Alcorn himself, but maybe he can answer a few questions on stuff in the policy manual and things about the, not project specific, but master plan specific. So we're lucky that we have a second meeting this month, but I don't think we want to go into that as a regular occurrence. The other issue would be God only knows what is going to happen with our economy, and if everything will just drop off and we won't have any meetings. So, I have no crystal ball, unfortunately.
On those dates, on that times, it doesn't matter, but the commission is going through this exact same discussion, and we're moving probably from 7:30 to 7. That's what we're gonna start.
Okay.
A little bit.
Thank you for that input.
It doesn't matter. I mean, you get to do whatever you want to do, but I'm just
That's
telling
good
you
to
what
know.
the commission is doing.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah, thank you, John. Okay, so we'll table those two topics till next meeting. Go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All right, motion and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, Lynn. Hope you all have a great night and appreciate everyone's feedback and input today.
Thank you for your
Great.
leadership,
Bye.
John. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Yep.
Mark.
Thank you.
Thank
a good
you,
night.
everyone.
Mark.
Bye-bye.